All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and sportnarium.com/player. And there is a lot to talk about here because obviously we have some breaking news. We'll also do some picks. Everybody loves those picks. And maybe we'll talk about the Knicks and when they're red hot against the Detroit Pistons. And I actually almost choked on air, but I'm here with three of my guys, including Chris Bizet of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals Show, Rob Maraska, and the brute force Brad Weiss. And gentlemen, how we feeling tonight?
How's it going, Tom?
I don't know what to say, Tom. How are you?
Well, I'm great now because I didn't choke, right? I don't have anybody around me where they can do the Heimlich maneuver on me. But be that as it may, gentlemen, obviously the news that has shook the sports world here, and especially the New York baseball world here, I would say just about over the past 90 or so minutes ago, which was broke all over social media, is that Jacob deGrom is no longer a New York Met, as he is now going to be a member of the Texas Rangers. We'll see the press conference here coming up on Monday, and I'm going to go to Rob Maraska first because you're the diehard New York Mets fan through and through, and you're the Mr. Met guy, and we're only doing baseball for a little bit here, but for those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, your thoughts on Jacob deGrom leaving the New York Mets to become a member of the Texas Rangers?
Well, I didn't think he wanted to come back. Since the playoffs, I didn't think he wanted to re-sign with the Mets. He was just giving that feeling that he did not want to come back. He opted out of his contract, which we knew he was going to do. But the thing is, when he signed this contract with the Rangers for 5 years, $185 million with a 6-year option that could total $222 million, he did not give the Mets a chance for a final offer. And he's already taken his physical. So what does that tell you? That tells me that he had no intention to stay a New York Met. And I don't know why, but guys, you know, it hurts. But then again, if you just think of it in a logical way, last year the Mets did it without him for most of the year. I mean, he's the only one who pitched good in the playoffs. But are they going to miss him? Yes, but $222 million, of course he's going to take that. Anyway, Texas is. I mentioned this before to some of the guys when we were texting about this. Let's remember the last time something like this happened with the Mets and the Texas Rangers. Someone named A-Rod signed with Texas, and we know what happened. So I didn't think deGrom was going to come back. It's a big blow. Yes, 2 Cy Youngs with the Mets, but now we have to move forward, and that's just the way it is.
And we'll certainly try to move forward, and we'll get everybody in here in a second. I have our friend Carlos Ortoro Chavez, who's here with us, of course, the Mad New Yorker, and he says, bye-bye. Rangers, another bad deal. Why do the Rangers keep making terrible decisions? LOL. deGrom will have maybe one more good season, and it won't be his fault. Billy McInerney, obviously, good to be with you. I know you haven't been with us here in a while, but you picked, obviously, a good time. A lot of people, obviously, are going to want to hear about the news about Jacob deGrom, and you're a Mets fan. Before I get to Chris and the brute force, and what's your thoughts, and what do you make of the situation now of Jacob deGrom now no longer a New York Met and now a Texas Ranger?
Yeah, huge blow, obviously, and the part that bothers me is all the evidence after this tells me the Mets were not prepared for this free agency. The most important free agency they've probably ever had, certainly in the Steve Cohen era, and they didn't know what their best offer of Jacob deGrom was going to be. They had a year to prepare this. He said in March he was opting out. They had a year to know what their best offer was. To me, this screams that they did not take this seriously enough, that they did not think Jacob deGrom was going to leave, and that they were not prepared for the possibility of him to get another contract offer. This guy was the best player on the market. You had to know someone was going to offer him a contract. This was the most important situation I think that Steve Cohen and Billy Epler have seen since they've been here, and they were caught sleeping on the job. I don't think there's any way to put it. I don't think deGrom wanted to leave. I think that the Mets weren't paying attention. I think that, maybe they would have given the 5th year, maybe they wouldn't have, but the fact that the report from Martino that they didn't feel they had enough time to prepare their last and best offer, that's just completely ridiculous. There's no way. There's no way. Steve Cohen said he wants to run the team at the Dodgers. There is no chance in hell the Los Angeles Dodgers would have not known what their last and best offer at Jacob deGrom would have been. Maybe they wouldn't have matched the offer, but they would have known where they would have gone. The fact that the Mets didn't know that tells me that they just were not prepared for this, and that's entirely unacceptable from a major league team. I need to see something happen this offseason because right now I have zero faith in this front office after this debacle.
All right. Well, before I get to Chris, I'll get to some more comments here from Carlos because Carlos is definitely fired up. He says, Mets will be okay. There are young arms, and the arms race will be coming from the minors. This is a great deal for the Mets moving forward. Don't pay this much for this type of situation. Chris, obviously good to be with you. I was listening to you this week on the Talking Rival Show. I know you've been struggling. Everybody seems to be sick that I know. So it seems like that's the club, and that's kind of where we are right now.
With this week, so I'm doing all right now.
I'm glad to hear. Yeah, I noticed you were still struggling on the Talking Rivals, and I'll hear your voice on the Liftoff Jets coming up here later this week and on Sportswire Radio. But, I mean, what do you make of the situation here from afar as a Yankee fan across town with Jacob deGrom no longer in Flushing, but now going to Arlington with the Texas Rangers?
I think it was kind of like a perfect storm. I think he probably wanted to leave. I think if he didn't want to leave, I think before he got to this offseason, I think they would have been working on some kind of a rework of the deal that he opted before he opted out. I look at on from that end and from the team side, I'm sure, listen, they knew this was going to happen, right? They knew the opt-out was coming and they knew he was going to opt out. So to say that they weren't prepared, I doubt it. They were prepared. I just don't think they were prepared to go for as many years and for as much money as Texas went, because you got to remember they would have to more than match Texas's offer, right? Because they have the no state tax in Texas, right? So listen, I don't know the money. You guys might know that more than I would, but how much more money would they have had to have gone to at least match that money, right? Probably another 30, 40 million probably just to match it, let alone go over it. So I listen, I think the Mets have a plan B and a C coming up, right? You still got Verlander out there. You still got Rodon out there. You still got the guy from Japan, Senga, whatever. I'm sure they're going to sign at least one of those guys. And you still got Bassett you could re-sign too, who was really good for you guys. He actually pitched all year. So listen, and deGrom, think about it. The last 2 years, he's pitched, 28 games, 29 games over the last 2 seasons?
Yeah, something we've talked about here throughout the season on Sportswire.
Yeah, I think they look at that and say, listen, the guy's going to be 35 next year. You know, are we going to pay this guy for his year 35 on, seasons at that price? And we also got, Max Scherzer here making 40 plus million at his age. So I don't know if they wanted to do that, to be honest. But what's going to be more important is their move, their response to this, to get a Verlander, to get Rodon, re-sign Bassett. They still got to, they got to fill up this rotation now. Because now who do you got in your rotation? You got Scherzer and Carrasco, right?
I guess Taijuan Walker as well you could bring back, right? Taijuan Walker.
Right, but he's also a free agent. So they got a lot of moves to make here.
I guess David Peterson, you'd still keep in the rotation.
McGill, maybe they're going to bring back into the rotation. But you know what? I'm sure they're going to bring back a big name.
Absolutely. You definitely want to try to bring up
in either one of the big names, either Verlander or Rodon for sure.
All right, well, before I get to the brute force here, Carlos is just really fired up here, and I'm sure that's going to be the pulse of a lot of New York Met fans at the moment here, especially throughout these next, I'm sure, few days that Met fans are going to have to digest this. Cone, Mets learned from Dodgers and the Kershaw debacle. You can't give funds and roster space to a non-playing player, and you don't worry anymore. Moving on forward, let's go. No Verlander, no Rodon. Get some younger guns. The big names will come in a bat. All right, so those are some fair points. The Brute Force Brad Weiss, always love hearing from you. Obviously, I know you're going to have something to say. You always do. But let me ask you then this question in a different context. And I got the perspective from some of the different guys here. But you as a coach and a player, and Jacob deGrom obviously been probably the most important player I think the Mets have had over the past 10 years. And certainly, I guess, kind of was the guy as close as you could have had to fill that void that David Wright had left for the Mets. And from your vantage point, let's say as a player and a coach, but maybe more so as a player, think about it from your days at SJC. I mean, how do you fill a void like this with Jacob deGrom? What would your expectation be right now as a player in terms of what the Mets do?
Well, the one thing obviously is that they're not going to fill the void with another Jacob deGrom. We know that. They're not going to get. There's not a Jacob deGrom on the roster, but or on the free agent market, I should say. But what there is a lot of serviceable pitchers. There are some guys out there that can eat innings. You guys mentioned Chris Bassett. That's one thing he did really well last year, is just eat innings, give you solid starts. And right now, I think the Mets are looking at that and saying, that's more important than having a big-time arm that you're going to have to pay a lot, that you risk whether he's going to play or not, because he hasn't proven to you can stay on the field. And that's one thing that, as a player, I can understand because, and as a coach, when you have a player who just can't stay on the court, it's hard to trust, or on the field, it's hard to trust. I know if it's your star player, obviously you still got to put him out there, but in reality, though, Tom Bryce, I'm actually taking an interesting approach towards this, because normally I'd be the guy to start trashing or bashing somebody.
You were Mr. Confidence this whole season. I would disagree with that. You were Mr. Confidence.
I was Mr. Confidence when it comes to the Mets, but I'm saying when moves like this happen, I would normally go crazy. But I'm going to try not to, because I think that in reality, both guys kind of said it. Is that deGrom seemed pretty obvious that he didn't want to be here now. It's really becoming evident. And multiple reports are now coming out saying that the Mets, didn't even get a chance to make an offer. deGrom already set his tone of he's going to the Rangers or he's not signing with the Mets. He made that, I wouldn't say he made that clear, but he made it, to a certain point where the Mets understood it. So that's not a good look for him, especially the organization that he decided to choose to go to. Obviously, he did not prioritize winning. He did not prioritize getting his number at the top of Citi Field as one of the greats. He didn't care about that, and it's pretty evident right now. But I'm going to take an interesting twist to this, Tom Bryce, because many, many years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, I have a good old friend. His name is Tim O'Brien. I'm going to give him a shout-out.
I feel like Tim O'Brien we've mentioned on Sportzwire.
Well, this is the thing that he used to tell me, and I thought he was crazy at the time, obviously, because I'm a big deGrom guy. Obviously, I have his jersey, another Mets jersey I can't wear anymore. It's like a whole collection I got now between Harvey and Cespedes and deGrom. I mean, all these jerseys are just flying out in the archives. But what I will say is that he told me 3 years ago that the Mets should trade deGrom, and I thought he was nuts. I'm like, are you kidding me? This guy's winning Cy Youngs. This guy's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And his point every day to me was that, Brad, the Mets don't score runs for him. They don't win for him. He pitches really well, but they don't do anything else well when he pitches. They don't hit. They don't score runs. They don't field. And they seem to be tense and have pressure every time he's on the mound. So I'm going to take the actual interesting approach of saying that this might not be as bad as we think. I think that, yes, this is a guy who was the face of the franchise. He was a guy that we all loved. We loved Simple Man coming out to, Leonard Skinner and everything like that. We loved it as Mets fans. But at the same time, he wasn't healthy. The team wasn't really succeeding when he started. It wasn't, again, you're going to miss him. I'm not trying to say you're not going to miss him. I'm not saying that he's not a good pitcher. What I'm saying is the team might not be as hurt as much as much as we think. I don't think it's going to be as bad of an effect. And I actually do agree a little bit with Carlos Otero Chavez. I think that, listen, there's other priorities that I think the Mets are thinking about. I think they're thinking about Pete Alonso. I think they're thinking about other bats that they have that they want to keep on this team. Because the reality is they have pitching that could win you games and could win in the playoffs still without deGrom. And I know that's saying a lot, but I think they can still get the job done, and they need to hit. And they clearly showed in DeGrom starts over the years, Tom Bryce, that they just didn't come through. And
he only won 72 games as a Met. You think about his Met career, only had 72 career wins despite the ERA and the Cy Youngs.
And again, that is not necessarily his fault, but that's simply what happened. And I think the Mets, with all these things I just talked about, had to consider it, and they still were going to pay him. But like the guy said, he decided to take the years, the money, and forgot about the fame and the winning. And I'm disappointed in him as a player because he did not think about winning when he made this decision. He just thought about money and probably taxes and all these different things and forgot about how much Mets fans and how much fun it is to play in New York. All those things that he said across the years in press conference. Oh, I love playing for the Mets. I love pitching here. I think he forgot about it. And he thought more about himself, probably his family situation, instead of winning. And, as Mets fans, we can't control that. Like the guy said, I'll say this the last thing, it's now about the response. What do you do? Because I think Steve Cohen will respond. He will make the moves. And even in his tweet that he had tonight, Tom Bryce, he was relatively respectful, but you could kind of tell by the tone of the tweet that he was just like, yeah, well, you decided to leave us and didn't really consider us. So go away, basically. Like, whatever.
No, I mean, and you can't blame him. And obviously the Mets are going to be under the gun here, and we'll speak about that here in a few minutes. And we're also joined here by Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter here. So we have a full slot in here, and I'll get to Justin in a second. But, I mean, listen, this is going to definitely be a very, very big next, I'd say, 24 days or so for the New York Mets. And, Justin, I'll get you in here before I get to a bunch of comments. Obviously, we're talking the news here, which I'm sure you're prepared to talk about, of Jacob deGrom. This is going to be a day, if you're a Mets fan, you're probably going to remember to the end of time. And certainly this was one of the faces of the franchise. Certainly, I would say maybe the most important player after David Wright in the past 15 years. And he is now left to go to the Texas Rangers. And from your vantage point, Justin, tell us how you feel.
I feel very empty, honestly. And, I would say this is the second time that a player has left my team that has just left me this speechless, even though I knew it could be inevitable. Obviously it seemed like he was prepared to leave and obviously got the deal that he wanted from the Texas Rangers. And, and I'm happy for him, but, and you know what? He's allowed to do what he wants, and it sucks as a Mets fan because this was our guy. This is not some, really good player that, comes and goes. This is a guy that we drafted in the 9th round. This is a guy that we developed and, we made our own superstar. And the fact that he's not going to be a lifelong Met, I think that hurts the most. It really does. And, I guess to soften the blow, I guess going to Texas kind of does that because, he's not really going to be a factor against the Mets, but it's tough. This is a pretty hard one to take, even if it may have seemed like he was ready to leave.
Well, let me get to a bunch of comments here because I'm way behind here on those and people would like to share their perspective. Joe Dell here says, wait, we lost our best pitcher in the 21st century to a Texas team. Carlos Ochoa Chavez chimes in and says here, the Mets need Nimmo to stay, shore up Alonso. Alvarez you bring up, get these guys on the field who are up and coming, and if these pieces don't fit on, move on from them and bring in some pitchers to fill the bullpen. I love the Mets, and the Mets need to win. We also hear from Joe Dells feeling like this is like losing Tom Terrific all over again. O'Brien is correct. Your friend, the Brute Force, Timmy O'Brien. You have to have a group of players to play and win together. The Mets moves players like Jeff Kent, Justin Turner, and so on, so it does happen. It is a business. There's no question that it is a business. Ed Kalesian, I believe that is here, has chimed in here, and Ed's a new face, so nice to be with you, Ed. I think he's not entitled to be happy and to take care of himself and his family. Jason Cruz says, been saying this for months. Loyalty was never a part of the equation. It's all about the money and the number of years. Well, it's a business in sports. It's like anything else. I mean, I've been involved in the
like any one of us. we would do
Listen,
the same thing.
I've been involved in the political world. I can tell you, it's a business everywhere you go. Unfortunately, we do a lot of wrestling coverage on Sportswire. It's a big business there. People make signings and moves, and in the music world, it's the same thing. We cover that. Joe Dell was in the music world. I'm glad it happened now during the winter meetings, and you can make moves. Carlos Otoro Chavez says, "Ask yourselves as a Mets fan." Could DeGrom have won another Cy Young and a World Series run? I didn't see it, and I'm okay. Thank you for your memories. Tough day for Mets fans. I'm going to bring you in, Rob Moras, because obviously you're the Mets expert. You're the guy that's seen all the Met moves and memories since, I don't know, 1968 or something like that, right? Not to be facetious, but, I mean, what do you want the Mets to do then? You're the Met guy. You've seen Seaver leave. You've seen, obviously, what happened. Mike Hampton in 2000, and you've seen, obviously a number of players. Rusty Staub got traded. I mean, you can go down the list. The Mets, unfortunately, his franchise has broke the fan base's heart. And whether Jacob deGrom doesn't have much left or doesn't, this is going to hurt a lot of Met fans because of what he's meant in terms of what he's brought to this fan base. And so what would you like to do for the Mets to go from here to make you happy?
I just want to say that I'm looking forward to the future. You know what? It's this doesn't sting as much as Seaver leaving. And because DeGrom, I feel he wanted to leave. Okay. I think he just wanted to leave. Maybe it's because, the Mets never scored runs for him. I don't know. But
maybe it could also be the weather too. New York,
Yeah.
It's very difficult in the winter.
Yeah, it could be. But remember, I'm going to bring up two quick examples. Darryl Strawberry. Worst thing I ever did was not re-sign. The worst thing I ever did was go to the Dodgers, leave the Mets for the Dodgers. Okay?
Oh, I think his personal life certainly went south right after that as well.
Okay.
I mean,
Number one. Number two, Mike Hampton. The best year of my life was when I was on the New York Mets. Another one who regretted it. And he left the Mets for Colorado because it was supposedly going to be
yeah,
better
I mean, he wasn't really the same. I had one or two more good years after that, but
and that was
quite,
it.
Yeah,
I mean, he was decent with the Braves, but you know what? So
But he
that's
also
how I
only
feel.
pitched 1 year for the team.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mean in length. I'm just saying how they felt after they left.
Yeah.
Because he could have been, who knows what he could have been if he stayed with the Mets. He went to Colorado, pitching in Colorado.
yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. When he was on the Mets that 1 year, I mean,
Jose Reyes left us too. Don't forget after he won the batting title.
Yeah,
throw
he's
Jose
another
Reyes
one.
in there.
Exactly.
Jose Reyes has openly admitted that he regrets leaving.
Yep. So
I always felt, listen, Jose Reyes was a tough loss. I mean,
it was.
Yeah, that a little younger. He was, I think, the most electrifying player I think any of us, I say Billy, myself, Justin, and the Brute Force have seen in our lifetime, really. I mean, he was electrifying.
I agree with you. So what the Mets have to do, move forward. Okay. They're going to sign a big name pitcher. Okay. If it's going to, that's what they're going to do.
Well, they better, because you know what? I mean, if the Mets just come up empty-handed here, even what Chris says here, and bring back just Chris Bassett and even go the Carlos Otoro Chavez approach, I mean, Met fans aren't going to tolerate that, because Steve Cohen is supposed to be this open the checkbook with a blank check in it and write it for whatever it goes out to. And if the Mets don't do that, I think this fan base is going to get restless, especially seeing the fact the Braves win the World Series last year and the Phillies get to a 6th game, and then in 2019, the Nationals themselves win the World Series. So the Mets are on the clock, and Steve Cohen has said himself he wants a championship within 5 years of owning this team.
Well, that's right. And remember what happened when Steven Matz spurned Cohen, okay? He went on a rampage, a signing rampage, and it sounded, just by his, he wished DeGrom well, but just by the tone of that.
I think he can't go. Steven Matz is nowhere near to the degree.
Of course not. But I'm talking about getting spurned. Okay.
Because you're eventually, listen, 30 years from now, Jacob deGrom is going to be at Mets Old Timers Day when they have one. So it's sort of like it's an awkward situation. I mean, it's one of those things, unfortunately, here. And let me get to a few more comments and try to work everybody in. As we have a full house here on Sportswire Radio. And if you like what you hear from us and you're tuning in for the first time, please like us on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our content on sportnarium.com/player, with shows like the Baseball Banter from Justin Gianelli, the Talking Rivals from Chris Pizzea, also the Liftoff Jets. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I am the owner of Sportswire Radio, and I am the host here of the Sports Report. Carlos Otoro Chavez says, just stay away from familiar, por favor. Shucks. Rob saw the Mets play before anyone of us was alive.
Thanks, cuz.
RJ Dickey, he meant to say R.A. Dickey. Billy, what do the Mets need to do then for you to be happy? Say, you know what, DeGrom, this blow was softened by fill in the blanks.
I mean, I didn't even know the answer to that because everything I want to see him do, I want to see him do on top of signing DeGrom. I didn't want to re-sign DeGrom at the expense of losing Brandon Nimmo. I didn't want to re-sign DeGrom and not bringing in another starting pitcher. So there's really, I don't think there's anything you do, just make this up. But from here on, I think like Justin said in the group chat we have, there's no excuse to not re-sign Brandon Nimmo. I threw in unless you're going to bring in Trey Turner to play center field, but there's no excuse not to have a top flight center fielder next year. To me, as much as like I don't want to pivot to Verlander because I don't want to accept that DeGrom is gone, but you have to sign Verlander now. There's no other.
That's what Carlos Otoro Chavez says. No Verlander.
I don't think there's any other option. You can't not replace DeGrom. You can't replace DeGrom with just by bringing back Chris Bassett. I know he missed most of the year, but the rotation was solid for a while with about that. But you can see before DeGrom came back, those back end guys were starting to run out of gas a little bit. Yeah, I think you need that other high-end piece of pair with Max Scherzer because, let's be honest, Max Scherzer is not a guarantee to get through a full season anymore either. So I don't think you can go with just Scherzer and then, a couple of number 2 and 3 guys. You need another ace with him. So I want to go Verlander. I don't like Carlos Rodon. I don't like the injury history there. I would have given – I probably – but I don't – he's going to get, I think, more years than you're comfortable giving. Yeah, I need to see either Nimmo or another top flight center fielder. I'm not sure who else that would be. Maybe Trey Turner going back to center field like he played younger in his career before the Nationals moved him to shortstop. I do agree with Carlos that I think Francisco Alvarez needs to be up here as the starting catcher on opening day. I'm not interested in seeing James McCann behind the plate anymore.
I think James McCann cannot be a starting catcher for the New York Mets.
No, James McCann can't be on the New York Mets at this point. He's got to go. And I think that I need to see some pieces in the bullpen. I need to see them. You're not going to have DeGrom this year. You need to have a lights-out bullpen. I need to see more pieces leading to Edwin Diaz. I think bringing back Adam Ottavino is a good start, but I need to see more. I'm not going in with Michael Givens as a setup man. There needs to be a concerted effort to improve this bullpen if you're not going to have Jacob DeGrom on this team.
Yep.
And Carlos Otoro Chavez says here, McGill, Peterson, Walker, and keep Carrasco. Chris, I'm going to ask you a different question than the rest of these guys because these guys are all Met fans, right? And I want to ask you a question, which I'm sure you're going to tackle with Patrick on the Talking Rivals show for us, I'm sure, during the week next week. But with this signing of DeGrom, how do you think this impacts the Yankees in their offseason with their own star player in Aaron Judge?
Well, I think it's going to come down to a simple thing with Judge. Does Judge value retiring a Yankee, having that Yankee legacy, having his number retired, being a Yankee captain, and all that stuff? Does he value that more than maybe what the Giants can offer him, right? Because the Giants could probably offer him maybe another year, maybe a little bit more money, and also playing near his family and his wife's family, right? So what does he value more? And that's what it's going to come down to. And really, I don't think the Yankees are going to go into the 9 or 10 year, contract wise for him. I think it's going to be like in 8 years, loaded up 320, maybe 40 a year. I don't know. But I don't think they're going to go into 9 or 10 years. I think they look at what happened with A-Rod. You can look at what happened with Pujols, Cano. So there's so many other examples.
Yeah, you look at a lot of those contracts, like you mentioned Pujols, you mentioned Cano.
They didn't do so well the last few years, right? They got ugly. So, and that's what's going to happen with Judge too. I mean, the guy's not Superman. He's going to have a good 4 or 5 year run, and then it's going to go downhill. So,
I hate to even bring up the Miguel Cabrera one, the second half of the comment. We had some massive years in the first half, but I mean, and he announced his retirement, by the way.
Detroit is saying, thank you, Lord, for
that was funny. I was going to talk about that and Gaylord Perry's death, but that's kind of on the back burner for a minute because that was the big news. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these contracts, unfortunately, you think about it, especially the back end of them, they don't work out so well.
They don't age well, and
no. I don't.
You know what? The Yankees, it paid off for them when they let Cano go, obviously, and we see how that turned. I mean, I don't think anybody knew the whole steroid thing was coming at the end, but that was gonna not end well either. But you know what? They, with Cano, they offered him more money per year, but they didn't want to give him the 10 years like what he wanted, and that's what the Mariners said. Hey, we'll give you the 10 years, we'll give you a little less per year, and that's what he wanted. That's what he got. So. And I think this is what might happen with Judge. Judge might get maybe an extra year from San Fran and the appeal of playing close to his family and his wife's family, playing back on the West Coast where he grew up, and maybe that's what's going to make him go. But maybe he values the legacy, having that Yankee legacy, retiring a Yankee and, the captaincy, the number retired. There's a lot of value in that. And does he value, does he see that, or does he just see the money with San Fran or LA or wherever he goes? So that, I think that's what it's come down to. And DeGrom, like you said, you guys said it too. He could have had his number retired and he could have been a life,
I think he still will.
Right. He might, maybe. I don't know.
He'll go to the Hall of Fame as a Met. So I still think his number gets retired.
I don't know if he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He'd have to put up some big years in
Texas. I agree with you, Chris. 72 career wins is going to be hard pressed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of guys. Listen, I mean, David Cohn, Brett Saberhagen. I mean, there's a number of guys that had
totally different era now.
Yeah, I understand, but to me, 72 wins is going to be. Even if he wins like 110, 115 games, going to be hard pressed for me to see him in the Hall of Fame. But the Mets Hall of Fame, that's certainly a different ballgame. And Carlos Arturo Chavez. Before I get to the Brute Force, Brad Weiss here has a bunch of comments. They still have Joey Lucchesi.
Joey Lucchesi, are you kidding me, Carlos Chavez? I'm sorry, Joey Lucchesi. Are you kidding? No.
Judge will not come back to the Yankees. Taxes are going to kill the guy's income.
It's going to be a bad season.
Yankees don't need Judge. Judge don't need the Yankees. I don't know if I agree with that. You know what? I mean, some people, listen, they have their opinions. You got to always give people their opinion. Yankees should not take on another difficult contract. Stanton, Cole, and Judge would be too much. I mean, look, we'll figure that out. But, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, obviously you kind of laid out some of the things that the Mets should do and what you'd want to see then as a player. But, I mean, how will you remember then Jacob deGrom? Because for those of us, I mean, as I pointed out, Jacob deGrom was like the next guy after David Wright. I mean, does this leave a bitter taste in your mouth toward how you feel about Jacob deGrom? Or how are you going to remember Jacob deGrom?
Well, I'm not going to take away from what he did while he was here. I do, and I will remember the Cy Youngs and the great pitching performances, and obviously getting to go to watch him pitch was something special as well. I mean, we're going to remember his talent, and we're going to remember what he did. Unfortunately, though, we're not going to remember him for being a winner, and that's one of the biggest issues with this is that. Yeah, we got to the World Series with him in 2015, but we got to the World Series with Matt Harvey and Noah Syndergaard and all these different guys, and we don't really remember them as much because that's not even something that Mets fans remember that much. Remember getting to the World Series, of course, but we're not going off and saying, oh well, we're talking about Syndergaard. We're not talking about them as much. I think deGrom will still get the recognition because he was here for enough years. He had a lot of success, okay? But ultimately, the success was not a World Series. It was not consistent, meaning that we did not have a sustained winning team while he was here. So I think that's going to be kind of taken against him a little bit. And listen, we talked about it, and I said it before, Tom. His record as a Mets starter is not that good considering what he did here, and that's not necessarily his fault. But again, if the team's not winning when you're pitching, I mean, he pitched arguably as great as we've ever seen, and the Mets still couldn't win baseball games. I mean,
the Mets, I think in his tenure here, I think they were sub 500 or just about 500.
The other thing, I think we might remember this to all our Mets fans. We might remember all the headaches we had watching him pitch because he was so great and the team couldn't score.
Yep.
Oh my God, all these different starts. So some of that frustration will go away. But again, he's going to be remembered as a great Met pitcher, but He's now, listen, we talked about, Tom Seaver and different other Mets great pitchers. He's no longer in that tier anymore because he wasn't a Met for that long and he didn't win here enough. So we'll give him credit when it comes to his ability and his pitching ability, okay? But not for his winning and for his ultimate, stamp on this organization because it didn't lead to a World Series. It didn't lead to sustained success over the years that he was here. So I think that's something that we will remember. And then the last thing I just want to add, I know Justin's probably going to go off this too right now, is that there's now rumors that the Mets actually did offer a contract to DeGrom.
We got 3 years, $120 million.
Yeah,
I think
but
Billy just gave
according
that to
to,
him.
I'm reading Joel Sherman and some other guys, is that basically when the offer was made, DeGrom's camp basically said, nah, he's going to the Rangers. And basically did not even consider the Mets offer. Or didn't even consider Mets, changing their offer. They just basically said, nope, he's already going to the Rangers and he's plans just to leave the Mets. So with all that being said and how this has transpired, I just don't think DeGrom is going to get enough recognition as he probably should, but it's his own wrongdoing. He should have stayed. And as Rob Maraska said, he's going to regret it, and we'll wait till we find out. But, let's see what happens in Texas. Let's see. We can't really judge yet. Let's see what happens in Texas. Let's see how the Mets do, and then we can judge more as the years go on.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see him in Texas. I mean, leave aside anybody's allegiances to a team. Obviously, Texas Rangers and their history with pitchers really hasn't been too good over the past 20-plus years or so. So that'll be interesting. But before I get to Justin, let me get to a bunch of comments. Aunt Laura is with us. Always love Aunt Laura, the Brewforce Sprout Weiss. And by the way, Aunt Laura loved my turkey post on Instagram, by the way, on Thanksgiving. So I want to give Aunt Laura a big shout out. I think Judge would like to win a World Series, which is why I think he's going to stay as a Yankee because I don't think he's going to get it in the National League with the Giants. So I'm with Aunt Laura on that. Lucchesi, bullpen guy, or dump him, but the Mets still have his rights, and no, he's no DeGrom. Okay, yes, Aunt Laura, if the Yankees don't move a few players, they will be short on the World Series situation. Well, we'll find out. Yankees still have a shot. DeGrom never had the bats backing him that he deserved. Yeah, well, the Mets really weren't too good in his tenure.
Also remember this, because, we got to, I guess, talk some most of the RBIs that the Mets had were actually him hitting the ball. So
didn't he hit like 400 one year or something like crazy stat like that, 410 or something like that?
There was last year.
Last year he batted. He actually had a positive wins above replacement just as a batter.
There you go. I knew somebody would have picked up upon that. The Yankees have Peraza and Volpe. They need to get younger. Glaber needs to move on just for his own sake. All right, we'll come back to the Yankees in a second. But for you, Justin, I mean, for the Mets to make you feel better about softening the loss of Jacob DeGrom, they need to do what?
For me, nothing is going to change. But
Okay.
but this team does need to respond and they need to get better. I'm not particularly interested in the idea of Justin Verlander.
Not Tigers 2.0 then for you. Not the Tigers 2.0 10 years later.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind Rodon, but I'm just afraid of what the contract's going to look like. Because I would say I would like a really good lefty in the rotation. One of the things the Mets have been lacking lately is a real good lefty. And that plays a big factor because teams have to adjust their lineup and don't always play their A players because maybe they're not good against left-handed pitching. So having a left-handed pitcher would be great. But like I said, I think Billy mentioned that I said it in the group chat. Re-signing Brandon Nimmo's a must at this point. There's no reason not to give him what he wants, and I'm willing to even go to what we've reportedly heard of 6 years, 150. Get it done. You're Steve Cohen. Get it done. Show me something. Show me that you're still committed to winning and you're still committed to building the best team possible. Because right now, the pitching farm system, while it's improved, the guys aren't ready to come up to the big leagues, right? So Tyler McGill, David Peterson have a locked spot in the rotation until they're pushed down the pecking order. So the Mets really got to adjust the pitching. And I would not, depending on what he wants. I saw Carlos's comment about Chris Bassett. depending on what Chris Bassett's looking for, I would not mind bringing him back. I thought he did have a really solid season, and yeah, he was the workhorse of the staff, right? The guy who went out there every fifth day.
He was a solid number 2 or 3, depending on who was injured.
He's like a 2-3 light kind of
guy.
So
exactly.
His ceiling's a 2, probably more 3, but he was good. I will say, you know, I'd have these discussions on Twitter about who I wanted for the bullpen. And unfortunately, one of the guys I wanted is off the board now. And unfortunately, you're seeing the price of what these relievers are going for. It is pretty insane right now. Chris Martin got a 2-year, $17.5 million deal from the Boston Red Sox. And I would have really a lot, especially with the way he pitched last year for the Dodgers. And he was still having a pretty good season for the Cubs as well before he got traded. But I thought Chris Martin would have been a good fit on a 2-year deal. They got to bring Adam Ottavino back. I know relievers are fickle and they're 1 year to the next. And if you kind of look at Ottavino's numbers, he's kind of like an every other year guy.
And he was actually within the season. I think there was certain months of the season on Sportswire. We were like, wow, I don't know if I trust him. But in the second half, he was obviously, I think, our second best reliever.
He was lights out from about mid-May on. And
yeah,
it was hard to trust him for a while. But yeah, once July, August rolled around, we trusted Adam Ottavino because he closed some games out when, Buck would use Edwin Diaz in the 8th inning. And my God, am I glad that they took care of Edwin Diaz so quickly because they got.
Well, maybe they knew that was going to happen. Maybe they knew that DeGrom, from what we were talking about here, we knew DeGrom wasn't coming back, and that's why they were right away, right out of the gate, signed Diaz to not even.
And Edwin had his Zoom press conference yesterday. He kind of knew he was going to stay. He kind of knew he didn't want to leave. So that kind of was good to hear. But you know what? They got to show up at the bullpen, and I don't know where it comes from, but they got to figure out something in the rotation. And I need another power bat. I really do. There's not enough power on this team. There really isn't.
Yep.
Oh, we're going to certainly find out, and I want to give a shout-out to somebody who I don't know why they're even up and tuned in out in the UK. That is, of course, Walker Wall Street, of course, of the Diamond Exchange, and our friends over at Coloring Championship Wrestling, who I don't know if you're going to be able to follow this, Walker, but I do want to announce tomorrow for you that we will have an announcement for CCW coverage Sunday night, so I don't think you're going to find this interesting at all, Walker, but certainly congratulations on all the success in CCW, and stay tuned tomorrow from my Facebook at Tom Bryson Sportswire Radio for a CCW announcement. But in the meantime, Carlos Otoro Chavez says Red Sox screwed the pooch because teams are about to take 3 other players. Ottavino was okay, but it all depends on who's setting up for him. Once the trumpet sounded, he was sold. So that was a good one. All right, good enough there, Carlos. But Rob Maraska, let me ask you this question, a different question, and we'll move on in about 15 or so minutes. We'll get to the NFL picks. We'll probably have to go a little shotgun on them, but we'll get to those because there's some games we obviously want to cover and such for everybody with the standings. But when you look in Mets history, Rob Maraska, how are you going to view Jacob deGrom?
Well, listen, he won 2 Cy Young awards, so right there, He was an excellent pitcher for the New York Mets. The wins, things are not the same as it used to be when I was growing up. The wins,
even 15 years ago, I don't think the wins are what they were 15 years ago.
No, it's not what it used to be. So he has 2 Cy Young awards, but does he have enough wins to be a Hall of Famer? I don't know. I think if he wins a couple of World Series, then that might push him over, but he's not going to win World Series with the Texas Rangers. There's no way the Texas Rangers are going to win the World Series. I think he made a big mistake. He took the money. I don't know why he didn't want to stay with the Mets. I don't know why. He does, his number definitely would have got retired. Now I don't know if it's going to get retired.
Yeah, it's hard to have a guy's number retired who pitched 8 years for us, really 7 full seasons. I mean, it's hard for me to kind of see that. I mean,
yeah. So I don't know what his reasoning is.
Money.
I'm sure we'll find out
right?
eventually. But it's a
money.
It's money.
Listen, it's a business.
It's money. All right,
It's simple as money. And look what the offer. Look that just quick, simple. I don't want to cut you off, but look at the offer the Mets gave him. 3 years, 120.
120.
Right?
I
40
know,
a year.
Texas gave him
exactly,
$60
but
more million and no state tax on top of
no
that.
state tax is big.
That's a lot of money to say no to. Right?
Definitely. But once you're making so much money that, your future generations don't have to worry about money. What about the other things? I know it's a business. It's all about money, blah, blah, blah. But also, hit your mark in history where there's no place more exciting to pitch or to play than New York. I don't care what anybody says,
But we see
Cub
in
fans
basketball.
might-
I mean, listen, the Knicks haven't been really that relevant consistently.
Oh, don't bring them up.
I know, but I'm trying to make a general point. I mean, when you really think about New York, it's not the way it was 30,
No, it's
40
not.
years ago.
But for
People don't look at
baseball, I think for baseball, it still is.
I don't know if it is. The Mets have never really been seen that way. I mean, if you really
in
think
the
about
80s
it,
they were. But let's just get
that's
back.
like 40
Texas,
years ago.
All right, it is. There's no. The taxes are a big thing, but still, once you make a certain amount of money, I would take in other things, but he didn't. This is what
I don't think they look at it that. I think from us as far as average guys, we might say, what's the difference between 120 million and 222 million? But these guys look at it like, well, I understand that these guys look at it and they see, well, you know what? I'm valued at a certain. This is what my value is, and they also have a responsibility in their minds that they have to get as every dollar possible because that next free agent class and that's how they look at it. Unfortunately.
Yeah, of course.
It's a business. Listen,
it's
I hear it all the time. It's a responsibility of the player to maximize their worth so that the next pitcher, Justin Verlander, who's also on the market as well, is going to get similar or more AAV.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not going to get the long-term deal, but
he's going to get more than 3-year deal that the Mets offered DeGrom. He's probably going to get that.
Who would be surprised if he gets 2 for $90 or 3 for whatever another $45 million is?
Right. I can see that.
Right. So
I think
you know what?
I think Verlander's going to top Scherzer's $43 million.
I don't blame DeGrom for leaving, right? Because that's 2 extra years. $60 million more. Actually, 3 more years, right? Because you got that extra.
There's an option on 60.
The option, right? So, I mean, that's a lot of money. And I think any one of us, forget about winning and all that. They don't care as much. That's a lot of money to say, nah, I'd rather stay in New York.
100%. Listen, I mean, and listen,
that's a lot of money.
I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal or anybody else, but I can tell you from being in different worlds with a little bit of a niche that I can tell you that if you have an opportunity to do something, even though unfortunately, as Brute Force would know, as being a player himself also, it might be screwing the fan base or the team. You don't look at it that way. And unfortunately, look, this is the way it goes. And a number of different people here have some comments. Walker Wall Street says here, he enjoys baseball, so I appreciate that Walker does. And certainly I look forward to resuming CCW coverage, and we'll talk about that tomorrow on the air. Joey Bostrom says here, I think if DeGrom had stayed, he could have been one of the all-time Met greats. Carlos Arturo Chavez says here, you guys need to be ready. This season is going to be crazy. No shift, automated strike zone, hitters going to hit, teams going to feel terrible for about signing older pitchers who have peaked. A Lambo with insurance, that's the difference. Verlander can get whatever as long as it's not here in Flushing. When politics are brought into it, it does show Jacob going to Texas. Well, I mean, look, people are going to make decisions whether it's taxes, the weather. I mean, look, judge in California, I would say it's the same setting. It all depends on how you see it.
You also got to remember too, there's a way to structure the contract where they get a signing bonus, where they get that up front, and that gets taxed to their residents. So a guy like Jacob DeGrom, who's a Florida resident, lives in Florida, and Aaron Judge actually is a Tampa resident. So
that's all no state tax as well, Florida, right?
That would not be taxed, and whatever else Like I think some of that happened with Manny Machado because
But
Manny
doesn't it go by where doesn't it go by where you play, like where you work?
your base salary, yes, but
Right.
but the signing bonus you get up front actually would be sent based to your residence, your place
Okay.
of residence. So if your full-time home, like your off-season home, is Florida or maybe it's Texas, who knows? There's definitely there's a lot of baseball players from Texas. So
Sure,
I mean, maybe they live
Maybe
there.
that's why they live in Florida or Texas.
Well, I think it's also historically baseball players come from
Right.
Florida and Texas because it's
look
warmer
at
weather. You can play baseball
look at
all
a guy
year
like
round.
Clayton
Yeah.
Kershaw.
That too.
That's always been, Florida and Texas have always been,
Yep.
I think,
And I
two of
think-
the top
Hotbeds
states.
for baseball.
Yep.
And you know what, guys? I think certain I'm not saying all the players, but a good amount of the players don't look at winning a World Series and all that the same way we do, right? I think they're happy with, hey, if I could walk out of here with $180 million like DeGrom is in another year, whatever, I'm happy. If I win a World Series, that's great. If I don't, you know what? I'll cry myself to sleep in my $180 million bed.
Well, right, and that's the difference. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, if you're making $1 million a year,
right, totally.
it's a different world. I mean, now if you have a chance to make $100 million more, how much does it really mean necessarily? And Carlos Otoro Chavez says here, bonus is based on where you live during the season. Players pay taxes to the visiting city. So that confirms pretty much what Justin had to say here. And Carlos also says here, same as other sports leagues here. So those are some of the things here that anybody else like to say anything else on DeGrom before we move on here?
I just have stats here real quick. We're talking about DeGrom's legacy. The 21 pitchers who have won multiple Cy Youngs, right, including DeGrom, when you excluding players who are currently active and therefore ineligible for the Cy Young, the only players with multiple Cy Youngs that that aren't eligible for the Hall of Fame because they're currently active, the only players that are not in the Hall of Fame, Danny McClain, who was involved in organized crime, so that's probably off-field stuff there.
Good reason, right?
Saberhagen, Santana, Lincecum, all unique cases. And then the only other one that's not in the Hall of Fame that's eligible is Roger Clemens, and obviously there's a whole can of worms there. Obviously there's players currently active: DeGrom, Corey Kluber, Scherzer, Verlander that can't go into the Hall of Fame because they're playing. But so I do think the odds of DeGrom being in the Hall of Fame are very good right now, especially if he goes to Texas and has some good seasons. I mean, I know the wins are there, but I mean, we talked about it. The guy had and I don't remember the stats. I don't remember where I saw it, but he was in the 1st percentile for run support, among all major.
Oh, well, what does he have? 1,600 strikeouts, and his ERA is what, about 2.5? I mean, that's probably if you're gonna give him a case like you brought up Santana and Lincecum.
For half his career starts, he allowed 1 run or less. So
I mean, if he ends up I guess with 2,500 strikeouts, above 2,500 strikeouts, I would say his ERA still is under 3. I mean, he's going to be close. I mean, I think Saberhagen's a guy that's probably gained some steam the last few years with the war crowd.
On a veteran committee. I think ultimately, I don't know if Santana will go in or Lincecum will go in, but I wouldn't rule it out.
I don't feel like Lincecum gets in. Santana, I feel like might have a slightly better case, but I'm going to say no.
I don't think Santana has I don't think he's a.
Saberhagen had what, about 175 wins, about 170 something wins. I mean,
something like that.
He did have some really good years, but he had kind of a similar career to DeGrom with probably a run higher in ERA. I mean, he'd be an interesting case. I always feel like
167 and 117.
167 and 170. Yeah, I mean, it's tough.
I don't know. I don't consider Saberhagen
1,700 strikeouts.
I always felt David Cohn was. I always felt David Cohn was more
very
of a
good
Hall of Fame candidate. Yeah,
I would agree with that. And the one problem with Santana is his career kind of went downhill a little too quickly. He had that incredible success. He had that incredible success
right after the no-hitter, right?
Exactly. What did he pitch? 4 games after that? Afterward?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think his career kind of took too much of a downturn.
I mean, yeah. Well, we'll certainly find out. Let me get to a couple more comments, and I'll get a few minutes more from Rob Moras. And I really do got to get to our games because I really want to pick these games, and we could spend all day, unfortunately, on the news here. For those that are listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, is that Jacob deGrom is no longer a New York Met. He is heading down to the Southwest and to the state of Texas, where I'm sure he'll enjoy a lot of Texas barbecues, as he is now a member of the Texas Rangers, signing a 5-year, $185 million contract with an option for a 6-year that could total up to $222 million. And obviously, deGrom, a 2-time Cy Young Award winner with the New York Mets, also a member of the 2015 National League Eastern Division and Championship team that went to the World Series. And the first World Series the Mets had went to since 2000. Certainly a disappointing day for Mets fans, and one of those days that I'm sure a lot of Mets fans are going to remember. But unfortunately for those who are Mets fans, he is no longer with the Mets, and the Mets will certainly have a lot to figure out. And Carlos says, same as other sports leagues. I'm going to say now, Rangers will not be in the World Series next season, and deGrom won't play more than 15 games. Boy, Carlos, that's really going on the spot there. He's not even going to start.
The first one's not a hot take. I don't think the Rain. I don't
but
think
the
next year
second
the
one,
Rangers will be good enough.
I think deGrom's going to pitch more than 15 games.
I do think so.
Yeah.
I will say though, the Texas could be a team to watch in that wild card spot.
They could be the Mariners this year.
Yeah, but you got to see Seattle repeat what they did. You know, I know they won 90 games in 2021 and just missed the playoffs, but I'd like to see Seattle repeat that. Obviously, Houston's going to be still the class of the West, even
class of the AL.
Well, I think the questions are going to be what happens in the American League East. You've got Tampa, Toronto, and the Yankees. Do they all have the same type of seat? And Baltimore's improved, and Boston.
Baltimore's going to be a lot better.
Boston's going to be back. Boston's going to spend money.
Right, and Boston was last place, but what, 88, 82? I mean, so that tells you that there's going to be a lot of moving and shaking, to say the least. So,
and the thing with Boston, for all we know, they could end up in the World Series next year because they're like that. Listen, the Red Sox are like that. Like, they'll have a bad year and then find themselves in the World Series.
Well, they've a couple of times
franchise. We don't rebuild. They add a couple pieces, and all of a sudden something clicks.
And you got to remember too with Texas, right? That they just got the new stadium last year or 2 years ago, so they want to fill that place up.
Pandemic season, 2020.
Yeah, you can't have 20,000 people there. You want a full house and a brand new stadium. So that's
a place. I agree with you because if it's in August and it's hot there, you're not going to that ballpark unless you have a reason to go there.
The good news is they built a retractable roof over it, the new one.
Well, that's going to help, but they still got at least a decent product, at least a team that's going to be fighting for a wild card. I'm sure they're not going to be battling Houston for a division, but they want to at least be fighting for a wild card next year. I think that's going to be their goal.
I think that's why you make a move.
You got to hope for better second years for Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. I feel like they got off to a bit of a slow start, and they kind of just derailed their season.
They remind me a little of like the Islanders last season, where they just dug such a big hole early in the year that they couldn't get out of it.
Come out of it.
Perfect example. Look how good the Islanders are this year with largely the same group.
Yep.
Which I'm still surprised they're 15-9. I will not lie, considering how they played.
Even they're still second behind the Devils.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll find out. Rob Maraska, I'm going to give you the floor for two things. We are going to move to NFL picks, and I'm going to go shotgun on these picks because we got a number of games to pick, and I still got Randy Dillon in about an hour or so to give a few thoughts on, unfortunately, the Rangers. We'll talk the Devils and the Islanders as well. So we'll mix it up because Billy's here in the house with us. But Rob Maraska, I want to give you the floor. Obviously, a few thoughts on Gaylord Perry. Unfortunately, sad news that kind of took a back burner here with the news of deGrom. But Gaylord Perry, obviously a legendary pitcher, and certainly pitched for the Yankees for a brief period. Number of teams he pitched for and had quite the career. I think I might actually have a Gaylord Perry baseball card. I'm pretty sure I actually have it. I unfortunately didn't think to actually post it on somewhere, but I'm pretty sure I do have one of the early Fleer sets with the Gaylord Perry card. So I'm going to have to remind you, Rob Maraska, to pick that out. But any thoughts you want to share on that? Anything else you want to throw out there as well in social media? And floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, I'll make it quick. Gaylord Perry. Yes, I saw him pitch, guys.
Me too, actually.
No, he pitched a long
right,
time,
Chris.
Gaylord
Chris,
Perry.
you're
I think.
close.
Yeah.
Was it like 22, 23 seasons?
I remember. I think he got his 300th win against the Yankees too.
He pitched from he pitched from 1983. Yeah.
I was gonna say, didn't he pitch with the Mariners even at one point? Right? Was he?
Yeah, he did.
I think that was when he got his 300th win against the Yankees. He was pitching for Seattle.
He was on the Mariners, correct. But spitball pitcher, that ball went all over the place. Him and his brother, the only brothers to both win a Cy Young Award.
Now Jim pitched a little longer in the 80s, right? Jim was in the mid to late 80s, right? I'm pretty sure because I think I have his brother's card as well. His brother won 230 games, right? 220 something, right? 227.
Together they're second. The Negro brothers are first. But
wow, the Negro brothers. I mean, pitched a 1,000 years. The Negros pitched.
Yeah, but they won 529 wins.
I was close. 215. You're telling me then. All right.
So spitball pitcher, went in the Hall of Fame as a San Francisco Giant, 5-time All-Star, won the Cy Young 2 times with the Cleveland Indians and with San Diego Padres. He pitched a no-hitter in 68. And Chris, you're right, he won his 300 game as a Seattle Mariner. So yeah, it seems like he pitched forever.
Joey Bostrom says Gaylord Perry, the Ancient Mariner. It almost reminded me of a Iron Maiden song, "Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner."
And they did call him that. Joseph's right. They did call him that. So sad day. His number was retired by the Giants, number 36, and he wasn't ejected until 1982. For the first time for the spitter. So if you could believe that, from the early 60s all the way to...
Well, you know what? I guess it worked. I mean, unfortunately, it is cheating, but it did work. I mean...
And you know what?
I'm with you, man.
Bill Niekro was famous for that, too. Remember the nail file
the
incident?
Knuckleball, yeah.
Yep. So anyway, that's what's going on. Also, my contest... We're going to talk about that next week because with this DeGrom stuff, I didn't have a chance to set it
And he
up.
was 84, Gaylord Perry, which was amazing to me that he was 84 because you think about a guy who pitched into the 80s that he was that old. I mean, 84.
He was 44 when he retired.
Yeah. He pitched a long time.
Had a great career. I mean, you think about it, he kind of was very similar to Phil Niekro in his career. Like the record was 314 and 260, something like that. And his ERA was wasn't like a dominant. It wasn't like a Greg Maddux or a Randy Johnson or even Roger Clemens, as Billy brought up, or just somebody who just totally blew you out of the park. But he hung on long enough that he got the 300 plus wins and kind of, I guess, a journeyman 300 game winner, but still definitely a Hall of Famer and such. And, and obviously also the other news, Miguel Cabrera announces his retirement. I thought Miguel Cabrera was going to play till he was 70 because he was collecting so much money at this point. Yeah. But, and then Joey Dell here says, one by one by the star-dogged moon. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Doing this on Sportswire for 4 years, you speak about so many different people's death. I still remember being on the air as a podcast doing Kobe Bryant's death, but just before the brute force joined. So that's how long that I've been doing it at this point. But everybody can follow you, Rob Marosco, on Twitter at @rmarosco. Look forward to the next contest. Had a lot of baseball talks. This was a good one for you, and we'll definitely put some clips out there. I know one of them did very well, so we'll see what people feel. And thank you as always, my friend, and looking forward to some next week coverage with you. And who knows what the future brings when it comes to all the latest happenings in the world of Major League Baseball, my friend. We'll see what the Mets do next week.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, and that was Rob Marosca here, our longest tenured analyst, as we're going to shift gears here and pick some NFL games. Obviously, a lot of games to get into, so we'll try to do them as quick as possible. So I'll bring the brute force, Brad Weiss, in here, because, the brute force, I was speaking with you on Instagram, and we were kind of going over all the different records, and obviously your very good friend, and most of our very good friends here, John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities Group. We're all trying to figure out, well, what was his record and what was your record? And we're under the conclusion that most of us were kind of around that 7-6, 8-5 threshold. So the brute force, Bradley Weiss, I would like to know, what are the standings, the latest updated standings in our NFL picks here on Sportswire Radio? Because I'm sure somewhere John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities Group is going to lurk and want to know.
Well, first of all, where is John Gonzalez? All right, because listen, you know what? I listen. Normally, I put it up there right away. I'm not putting it up there until John Gonzalez shows up. All right, because
Well, that's not fun.
listen,
That's not fun.
listen, I do not want to look at it. Okay, it personally disgusts me that for the third or fourth week, John Gonzalez has to be on the top of this poll. But listen to me. I mean, John, you're having a good time, but it's going to be one of these weeks. It's coming. I can feel it. It's going to crash. He's going to have a really bad week. Someone's going to leapfrog him, and he's going to fall apart. So I'm just waiting for the collapse. It's almost like the Cowboys. We're waiting for the collapse.
Yeah, but you realize he's going to have to go like 3-10 or something like that.
Well, I will say I'm waiting till he shows up to post it. But there is somebody on his tail that made some progress this week, and that's Anthony Finkel, who's not in the house yet.
Well, by the way, Anthony Finkel, who I know is not here because I should even say it, but Mr. Gonzalez wasn't too thrilled with Mr. Anthony Finkel. So if anybody's in the Sports Authorities group, they might know why. That's all I'll say. So Anthony Finkel, I believe, is in the state of Florida right now. So he has no idea where he is right now, Anthony Finkel, knowing him.
Well, he's in second place. So, that's the guy going after John Gonzalez. So if it wasn't already a heated rivalry, I guess it is now.
Oh, it's definitely a heated rivalry, I'm sure. But Mr. Gonzalez, I'm going to leave what Mr. Gonzalez told me. That'll be between Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Finkel.
Where is John? Is he chilling in Detroit? I mean, what is he doing? I mean,
you know what? We got a really interesting matchup involving the Lions this week. I definitely we're going to pick, obviously, Lions and Jaguars. Actually, a number of games that I'm really excited to pick because I was actually, for the past couple of days, really like listening to these games. Like, when I'm listening to different people speaking, I'm like, who should I pick? And this is the first week I have to say now that I'm like really immersed into these picks. So I actually am going to have some thoughts on some of these games, but I guess you won't share the standings. So eventually we'll share the standings when John Gonzalez comes here. But the Brute Force, we are going to start with picks because we are on the clock. We're a little behind than where we usually are in the picks. And the first game I want to go to here is the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. And I don't know where to go in this matchup, the Brute Force, because obviously it's all going to depend. We've got Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields. Both guys are, I guess, hurt, and we're going to figure out, I guess, the Bears with Fields and should they play him, should they not? But Packers are 3.5-point favorites here on the road. 44 is the over/under, and I guess it's one of those games you might not want to know who you pick until literally maybe kickoff, but you have to pick somebody here, the Brute Force, and you're on the clock first.
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, most of us are going to make a pick. Very scared to make the pick right now because we don't know what the heck's going to happen on Sunday. I mean, is Aaron Rodgers playing? We don't know yet. Is Justin Fields playing? We don't know yet. Okay, so ultimately, based on that news, that might be what changes what we think. So I'm going to take the odds here. I'm going to say that Aaron Rodgers plays and Justin Fields doesn't play. So that is going to be the reason why I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. I know that the Green Bay Packers haven't been doing that well, but to look at their game last week, though, they did compete well against the Eagles. They put up 30 points. I know the Eagles are not firing on all cylinders right now, but, they still put up points. I will say for the short term that he was in, Jordan Love didn't look that bad. So if it is Jordan Love, I wouldn't say that necessarily the Packers are going to be flagrantly awful. I think they'll keep it in check, and I think the Packers will win. When it comes to the spread, I'm nervous. I'm gonna cautiously take the Packers. Also, oh boy, here he is.
Here we go.
Here he is. Okay, but listen. All right, but I'm going to take the Packers both with the game and the spread, assuming that Fields does not play. But again, like you said, Tom, we got to pick somebody, so I picked the Packers.
All right, and we'll try to run through these games as quick as possible because I got a number of games. And John Gonzalez is here, so nobody is catching me. That's already been determined. Let's get the party started. Ron Laird and Joey Bostrom are here to pick us also. So, Chris, Packers, Bears, obviously interesting storylines in terms of the quarterbacks. Packers, for what it's worth, if you count them still alive, do need to win out. Bears, I think, are playing for the lottery. Bears are at home, 3.5-point underdogs. 44 is the over/under. What do you think here, Chris?
If I had to pick, I guess I'm going to take Green Bay just because if Aaron Rodgers plays, he likes to brag that he does own Chicago, and he does own Chicago. So, and I think Fields is supposed to be playing. So I don't know if you want to change your pick.
John Gonzalez has also pointed that out that Fields is going to
They
play.
confirmed Eberflus said he's starting.
Yeah, I'll still go with Green Bay. I don't like either team. They're both struggling, and Chicago did not look good last week against us. So I'm going to go with Green Bay.
Billy, Packers, Bears. Packers 3.5-point favorites on the road against the Bears. 44 is the over/under. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think both quarterbacks end up playing this game. It sounds like Fields is going to be back, and I feel like Rodgers is going to play. But I think the Bears are going to seriously limit Justin Fields' rushing attempts. I think that's going to really hurt their offense, so I'm taking the Packers.
For you, Justin, Packers, Bears. Packers 3.5 on the road that they are favored over the Bears. 44 is the over/under. What do you think?
One quick aside to this game is that Nathan Peterman is going to be the backup because the oblique injury that Trevor Siemian suffered prior to the Jet game is actually serious enough that he's going to have season-ending surgery. So Nathan Peterman will be behind Justin Fields in this game. And, Aaron Rodgers is good to go, obviously. And Chris stole my thunder. There's one man who owns the Chicago Bears. That's Aaron Rodgers. Packers in an easy one. I just don't see how the Bears could score points, especially if Fields is limited. The Bears' defense is not that good. Rodgers will be able to carve them up.
All right, before I pick, I'm going to get to the rest of the guys here. Ron Laird says Packers in a close game, under. John Gonzalez already saw. Joey Bostrom. And by the way, this pick, Joey, new pick, by the way? Is this a new picture here? Because it doesn't look like the picture I used to see from you in front of the house in South Beach, but nobody else would get that but me and you, Joey. But Green Bay has played really well on the road on Sunday. Packers win 17-14. Watson is a beast. Fields is playing. Carlos Otoro Chavez says here, the Bears, maybe next season. Packers by a field goal.
Wait, hold on. Can you go back to John? Can you pick the Bears?
He did pick the Bears, yeah.
Oh, this is the start of the collapse. I told you. Here it comes. Here it comes, part one.
Well, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers because two reasons. I think this is the week that the Packers, for what it's worth, will finally get on a winning streak. I just think that the odds of Green Bay against Chicago normally, I think it was Chris that had pointed out that Green Bay usually owns Chicago in these spots. And even though that Fields sans last week because he didn't play, he's actually played pretty well for the Bears the past 4 or 5 weeks. Something tells me here, I think Green Bay scratches out a win and keeps whatever is left of their season alive. So I'm going to go with Green Bay here. And the Brew Force, this matchup to me is so intriguing for a number of different reasons. And that's, of course, the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans, because we're going to see the debut of Deshaun Watson, the $230 million man. Certainly the Cleveland Browns paid through the...
I don't know if I would call him that, but...
well, a lot of people are going to call him a lot of different things. I think I even heard on ESPN radio that certainly some of the people that Mr. Watson unfortunately did some things that I'm sure he would regret are going to be there to heckle him at the game. I don't know if that was true or not, but I did hear that at least on the radio earlier this morning. But we're going to see the debut of him. And the Cleveland Browns, I guess for what it's worth, have played a little bit better of late. And Jacoby Brissett actually I don't think, played that horribly as Browns quarterback. And he looked pretty good in the fourth quarter and overtime last week against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. And Browns are 7-point favorites here on the Houston Texans, who are pretty much playing for a number one pick in the NFL draft. They're looking to win the lottery. And 46.5 is the over-under. And the Brew Force... what do you make of here, Deshaun Watson's debut with the Cleveland Browns, and who do you think wins?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying that I'm going to pick the Cleveland Browns to win, but I actually don't think this is going to be a great debut for Deshaun Watson. I think you listed a few reasons why. Sure. Number one, okay, he's going back to where he played, so the reception is not going to be good. And I know, listen, everybody's going to tell me, well, Brad, the reception's not going to be good, but it's only going to be from 5,000 fans because they don't get anybody in the stadium. I will say that, that is a factor, all right? But I just don't think Deshaun Watson is going to be firing on all cylinders in his first game back. I think that there's going to be some pains with the offense and making plays. And I know the Texans, if it's any team to come back against, it's the Texans right now, okay? Mm-hmm. But for some reason, something's telling me here that the Texans are going to keep this game close for some reason. It's not going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be close. And in the end, the Browns are going to win, but it's not going to be pretty. This is not the game, by the way. This is the game every week we talk about, Tom. Don't put it on your televisions. Don't watch. It won't be that exciting to watch, okay? I do think the Browns get a win the game, but it's not going to be pretty. So I'm actually confidently going to say that I'm going to take the Texans with the spread. I'm going to take the Texans with the spread, and I'm going to take the Browns to win.
Call me crazy, but because of what you just said, I'm probably going to tune in and watch the game because I actually have a way to watch all these games, and I asked me off the air, but that's for off the air. But Chris, my friend, obviously Browns Texans, in a way, it is kind of an interesting matchup. Obviously, storyline here with Watson debuting with the Browns. Browns have looked, I guess, a little bit better of late, 4-7. Certainly, they've held the fort, I guess you might want to say, but. We're going to see him in Houston. Do he find a way to, I guess, get off to a good start, or do maybe the Houston Texans actually pull off an upset here?
Yeah, I think he's going to be, obviously rusty. I mean, the guy didn't play at all this year, all of last year. So, he's definitely going to come back rusty. But you got to remember, when this guy gets it going, I mean, he's a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Oh, phenomenal.
I mean, that's how good this guy is, unfortunately. So I think the Browns are just a better team than the Texans. So I think that'll win out. I mean, I wouldn't touch the game of betting, but I think the Browns will win the game. I think the Browns are more of a team to watch out for next year, and, with Watson playing a few games this year and going into next year with a regular offseason and everything. Yeah, I think they're a team to watch next year for sure with him quarterbacking. But for now, yeah, I think they'll beat the Texans.
Billy, Browns, Texans, obviously storyline speaks for itself. Deshaun Watson starting the season here in the place that he played for many years and had a lot of success. And does he find a way to get off to a good start here and I guess keep the Cleveland Browns season somewhat alive and somewhat interesting? Or do the Houston Texans find a way to pull off an upset and get a rare victory?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there's any way to talk about this game without talking about, the past and what's happened. And
sure.
I don't want to pick the Browns because of Deshaun Watson. I'm disgusted by what he did. But the Texans are horrible. There's no other way around it. I don't think their offense is getting anything going. I agree with Brad that I don't think the Browns offense is going to do anything. And I do think that Deshaun Watson is going to not be at his best. And I think Myles Garrett is going to just feast on the Texans offensive line on Davis Mills, who just doesn't have the arm strength to play at this level. So the Browns are going to win this one. I think they'll really cover the spread. I think this is going to be like a low scoring, disgusting game. Honestly, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Texans win, but I don't see it happening.
All right, fair enough. And for you, Justin, Browns, Texans, debut of Deshaun Watson. Does he get off to a good start with the Browns, or maybe the Texans pull off a rare upset?
Well, there's one reason, and one reason only why I'm wearing a Houston Texans jersey right now. Because you know what? That I don't even want to say the words that I would use to describe Deshaun Watson. Texans are going to win this game, and they're going to hand it to him badly. They are. This is going to be their Super Bowl right here. This is going to be the one game that they get up for, and they're going to knock Deshaun Watson back, and they're going to come away with this upset. I do think that Kyle Allen's going to play well. I think that the Browns' defense is not. I know they got Garrett. Their defense is nothing special. Give me the Texans here. Give me the upset.
All right, nice. And let me get to a bunch of comments. Joey Bostrom first says, "I love the rivalry between John Gonzalez and the Brute Force." Yeah, we all do. It definitely gives us ratings, and I think we had almost 200 people tune in on Facebook last week. So people definitely like the rivalries, which is always great. John Gonzalez said he likes the Cleveland Browns. Carlos Otoro Chavez says Texans by a touchdown. Ron Laird says Browns win to Watson's debut. Joey Bostrom says Watson will be rusty for Cleveland, but the Browns pull it out. John Gonzalez says Houston is the worst team in the NFL. Browns will win, will cover. Carlos Ochoro Chavez says here, Chubb will be great, but Watson's first game, ew. I'm going with the Cleveland Browns because I do think that the Browns have played a little bit better of late, and I just think from a talent standpoint, even though I hear Justin's point, and part of me does kind of want to say maybe the Texans could pull out the upset, but it's just hard for me to see the Houston Texans winning here in this spot, just the way they played, even last week against Miami. And it's a team that's clearly, to me, going to probably win one or two more games at most the rest of the season. I don't think they get the win here. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a close game. I wouldn't want to bet on the game in terms of an over-under, but I would say here Cleveland probably wins by 10, maybe 20, 24-14, something like that. So I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns here, probably like most of us here. And the brute force, that brings me then to another game that is interesting. That's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tennessee Titans. Eagles 4.5-point favorites here. 44.5 is the over/under, and Eagles, I guess you could say, were somewhat impressive against the Packers. I wasn't overtly impressive with the second half in terms of the game, and Green Bay did kind of hang in there, I think, as Justin and some of the other guys have pointed out here. And the Titans pretty much played, well, kind of how some of us thought. I mean, I kind of had Tennessee to beat Cincinnati in a rematch of last year's playoffs. But, I mean, what do you think here, the brute force? I mean, Eagles are still rolling, but they haven't been as impressive the last few weeks. So what's your thoughts on who do you think comes away with the win here, the Philadelphia Eagles or the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, Tom, this is a tough one. I've actually had a tough time making this decision. Listen, the Eagles are still obviously really formidable. Jalen Hurts is playing absolutely amazing football with his legs and his arm. They're making plays. Listen, the one thing that everybody's talking about, as they should, is that Derrick Henry's going against the Eagles defense that has been struggling against the run. Listen, that's a concern. But there's something telling me that, even though the Titans, who have been good against some of the better teams, like they made the Chiefs work, they made the Bengals have to, struggle, but still the Bengals won. They're not the team that just gets pushed over. They're going to make you work, and they're physical and they're tough. But I just don't think they're going to stop Jalen Hurts enough. And I think that's going to be the reason why the Eagles are going to win in a close game, in a thrilling game. I think they're going to be a tie game or a close game late. And for some reason, something tells me that Tannehill's not going to get it done, and they're going to stop Derrick Henry when they need it. And the other thing's going to happen on the opposite side. I think Jalen Hurts has just proven to me that he could do so much with his legs and his arm that's going to give the Titans a hard time. So I'm actually going to say, similarly to the Texans game, I'm going to say the Eagles win. But right now, I'll take the Titans to cover the spread. I see this being a field goal game, and the Eagles win that game.
Chris, your Philadelphia Eagles, while they continue to roll, have not been as impressive as I think they were early into the middle of the season, but they are the best team in the league right now, and the Titans are, again, in first place, but not really an overtly impressive AFC South. Eagles 4.5-point favorites, 44.5 is the over/under, and what do you think?
Yeah, I think as long as they stop the run, which I think they will because they have added a couple of pieces and they're getting Jordan Davis back as well. I don't think the Titans are going to be the Eagles. I could see them covering too in this game. I think AJ Brown's going to have a big game. This is his former team. Probably wants to show a little bit. Having a quarterback that actually throws him the ball. So I think they're going to run down. I think they're going to run a lot like they have been all year. To me, Philly just looks like they're unstoppable when they run the ball. It's just ridiculous. I'd like to see Jalen Hurts throw the ball a little bit more. But I think the Eagles are going to win by a good touchdown, maybe 10 points in this game.
All right, that certainly could very well happen. And for you, Billy, Eagles, of course, as a Giants fan, I'm sure I know you're going to go with this, but Titans are in first place, not overtly impressive, but they are kind of, I guess, where you might expect them to be usually at this point in the season. But what's your thoughts here on this 1 o'clock game between two first-place teams?
Yeah, I'm actually not going the direction you think I'm going to go, Tom, because you would think the Giants now going to be against the Eagles. The Eagles have impressed me this year. They really have, and like Chris said, they've made some moves to improve their defense, especially their run defense the last few weeks, I think. I think they've gotten better defending the run. I think they're going to be better defending the run. And I just don't think the Titans have the corners to cover Brown and Devonta Smith. I think the Eagles win this one by a fairly large margin. I'm going to go like a 2-score margin. I think the Eagles win this game. I think the Titans can kind of stay within like punching distance, but I don't think they have the pieces to keep up, and they're not built to play from behind. Ryan Tannehill's not the quarterback that's going to lead the come from behind drive, and I don't think their offense is explosive to keep up with the Eagles, who have the ability to score in any play, especially if Miles Sanders, finally getting it going a little bit. I don't think it's gonna be a laugher, but this is gonna be, I think, a bigger game than people think it's gonna be.
All right, could very well be. And for you, Justin, Eagles and Titans, 2 first-place teams, 1 o'clock time. Eagles 4.5-point favorites, 44.5 is the over. Let's say you.
The Eagles are a tremendous team, and they're having a tremendous season, and maybe they're the favorites in the NFC for the Super Bowl. I gotta tell you, this is a horrendous matchup for the Eagles. This screams upset because the way they could be physical, the way the Titans could be physical with running the football. I mean, they pushed the Bengals to every last second there, and the way they're able to run the football. And remember let's remember what happened a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, we mentioned last week that A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones were running the ball fairly successfully. But just think about what happened in Week 10 on that Monday night when when the Eagles lost to the Commanders. The Commanders rushed for 152 yards and controlled the ball for 40 minutes. The Titans are easily capable of doing that. And Dontrell Hilliard behind Derrick Henry as well. I don't think it's talked about enough, and I think that they're going to be able to run the football well enough that I think that the Titans will pull this off. I like the Titans.
All right, those are some fair points you may make. Let me get to some of the guys here in terms of their points. And John Gonzalez says, I love Brad, but he is my arch rival when it comes to the NFL. Carlos Otoro Chavez says, Philly will win, but it won't hurt the Titans at all. John Gonzalez likes the Birds. Ron Laird says, like the Titans, but think Eagles will win. Ron Laird first, but Joey Bosham says Eagles win in a close and a physical game. Ron Laird also wants to remind me in college football for the Conference USA Championship, UTSA beats North Texas 48-27. Thank you, because tomorrow is Conference Championship Day. I think it's 7 games tomorrow, 7 or 8 championship games.
Too, big for the college football playoff.
Yep.
Utah currently leads USC 27-17.
Well,
USC cannot afford a loss and stay in the playoff.
And that's the second time that Utah would beat USC as well, I believe.
Yes, that is USC's one loss. Now, if TCU lost to Kansas State, I think at one loss they probably still get in. I think they're a lock. Georgia, Michigan, easily a lock. By the way, I'm disappointed in the committee. I thought Michigan should have been the number 1 team in the country.
Well, we'll find out after the weekend here. And Carlos Otoro Chavez says San Antonio played hard to wrap up the season. As much as I want to go with the Titans, it's hard for me to see Philly losing in this spot just because, again, they're at home, 1 o'clock time. It just, with the way the Titans play, I think somebody had pointed out, which I pretty much agree with, the Titans cannot play from behind. So I kind of feel like Eagles probably win here by 7. I want to say 27-20, maybe something. 24-17 wouldn't surprise me even. So that's kind of where I see it here, and that'll be that. And then the Brute Force, I want to get to a game that I really am excited to pick here, and that is the Detroit Lions and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this is a game where this is probably as one of the more classic pick'em games you're going to get, and 2 teams that are actually might be one of the more exciting games of the day, which is kind of crazy because both teams are, I believe, 4-7. But Lions have played really well the last several weeks, and the Jaguars got a nice win against Baltimore, and they're starting to progress. And kind of like what Justin said early in the season, the Jaguars are showing signs of improvement. I don't know if it's enough to really make a serious run, but it's a really, really interesting game. I can't quite say it's an upset for either team if you're going to pick, but 1-point favorites are the Detroit Lions. 51 is the over-under. So I hope this game is going to be a lot of fun. I'll be tuning into this one here, the Brute Force, and you're on the clock there, buddy.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get off the clock quick when I tell you that the Detroit Lions are going to win this game. All right? Listen, this game is a big game when it comes to the Detroit Lions involving me. All right? Now, I know they don't care about me, okay? But I care about me currently, and I was the guy that came on this show and said the Detroit Lions would win 6 or more games.
You did say that. This
is a big game for that. If they are serious about that, this is the game to win against the Jaguars. Now, as you correctly stated, Tom Bryce, I like the way the Jaguars are playing. I think Trevor Lawrence looks much better. I think that, last week was a nice win against the Ravens, even though I got something to say about those damn Ravens later. Okay? But ultimately, I just think that Detroit, they're not getting enough credit for the way they're playing right now. They're really scoring at a high rate.
They're better than 4-7 because they lost to the Seahawks 48. Vikings game. They've had some good games.
There's a bunch of losses. The Vikings, the Seahawks. Last week against the Bills, they could have won. I mean, and listen, I don't think any of us at the beginning of the season said, "Oh, the Bills game, yeah, they might win that game." No, we all said they were going to get blown out. Okay, so listen, the fact that Detroit lost to Buffalo by 3, and we're saying they should have won is a big statement for the Detroit Lions. And I think that the Lions are a high-octane offense. Yes, the Jaguars could score, but the Lions just score more. And I think that'll be the case. That number, Tom Bryce, 51, give me the over. I see this being a 38 to 28 game, something really high, and give me the Detroit Lions scoring those 38 points.
Yeah, I really like this game because I really think that these two teams are almost coming at it from a similar situation. I think these two teams are just on the verge. They might be on the cusp, both these teams. But I'm going to try to go shotgun because I got to get to a few more games. I have Randy Dillon here in 25 or so minutes, and Chris is going to bounce in at that point. So, Chris, Lions, Jaguars, obviously both teams are kind of playing well. Lions are kind of our Cinderella team on Sportswire. And who do you think wins here, this classic pick'em game?
I think the Lions are going to win, even though, like we were saying, the Jaguars are playing much better. And I look at it this way with Trevor Lawrence. I think this is more of his rookie year than last year, because last year is like a throwaway year after that whole mess that he went through. So this is like his rookie year. So now he's starting to get it, especially last week, that last drive. He looked great, man. That was probably his best drive he's had, in his short career so far. So this is a team to look out for next year, I think, looking at Trevor Lawrence's second year under Doug Peterson and all that. So, but like you say, Detroit's playing really well too. They should have a couple more wins. I think they're going to win this week.
Yeah, I think both these teams
are just game,
Yeah, this is going to be a fun game. I think it was 28-25 that the Bills beat the Lions last week, and this game will probably, I think, be in the 60s. It has just a game classic 60s feel. Billy, Lions, Jaguars, again, Lions 1-point favorites here at home. Jaguars have a big win under their belt, probably one of their more bigger wins of the season, and the Lions have played very, very strong. We saw them against the Giants, unfortunately, handle them comfortably. But what do you think here in this matchup of two emerging teams?
Yeah, I've been impressed by both teams, especially the Jaguars. Ever since they banished Urban Meyer back to the clubs, it's been a lot better. I'm going to keep taking those shots at Urban Meyer because he's just an idiot. But look, I think the Jaguars are a playoff team next year. I really do. This year, I actually want to give a shout out to my friend Robbie Sabo, who I used to work with.
Oh, yes. Good old Robbie. Yep.
We were talking this week. Is this week you pull the trigger on the Lions in Survivor Pool. And I said it is. I think the Lions win this game. I think Dan Campbell, with that long week from Thanksgiving game, has them up, has them ready to go. He's a great motivator, and they just almost beat a Super Bowl favorite last week. I think they're going to be raring to go. So I'm taking the Lions to win this one, but I completely agree with Brad and Chris. This is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm even going to go higher than Brad. I'm going to say like 38-33 we see this game end up at.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think at the 60s at the very least. And Justin, Lions, Jaguars, I mean, you kind of did nail it on the Jaguars early in the season. You thought they would show some signs of improvement with the new coach and quarterback gets the right guy in place. And obviously, Doug Peterson has got a Super Bowl under his belt, and he's been involved in some great quarterbacks and helping them. And it looks like the Jaguars are finally turning around the corner here for the first time in a while. And the Lions also here have played really strong in their own right the past few weeks. And who do you think wins?
Yeah, this is a real fascinating game. You know what? I like the Jaguars here, and you know what they're getting? They're gonna get Travis Etienne back, and that's gonna be a nice boost. But honestly, the reason why last week was the real welcome to the NFL moment for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that was the moment he arrived in the NFL, and I think he's just going to take off from here. And I expect him to have a big day against a porous defense. I think the Lions will be able to score some points. Yeah, I see a high scoring shootout like you guys do too, but I think the Jaguars come on the good end of this one.
Carlos Otoro, let's get to a bunch of comments first. Carlos Otoro Chavez says USC is going to muck this up. Maybe so. John Gonzalez, of course, wants to remind everybody Michigan is definitely number one. I picked them last week. But going to the NFL games before I pick, John Gonzalez says my Lions. I picked upset as well for the University of Michigan. Detroit wins, and I love Ron Laird's excitement for that. The Lions are better than 4-7. Yeah, they are. I mean, they've scored 275 and allowed 310. So if you do the math,
the Jaguars are better than 4-7 too. But
they are 242. Their point differential is plus 12. So
yeah,
the Jaguars are
plus differential. They've had some close losses.
And in fact, their plus differential is better than the Vikings and the Titans. So that shows you the Jaguars are right there also. Detroit has players returning, but Jaguars coming up. Jags by 3. I'm going with the Lions. I always pick the Lions, but I actually am picking the Lions because they have legitimate momentum. But this is going to be a great game. I see this game being 38-35. That's kind of how I see it. 38-35. I think it's going to be a great game here. The Brute Force, I'll go to the Steelers after this game because I want to get this game out of the way. That is the Ravens and the Broncos. And I know you kind of wanted to jump on the Ravens in a second. I think the Brute Force, when I look at the Ravens, even though they are 8.5-point favorites here over the Broncos, the name that I want to call the Baltimore Ravens is the Baltimore Pretenders because almost every game they play in, it's like the same storyline. And I can't quite figure out this team, and they are in first place, but I don't know how much longer they're going to be in first place. And they're just lucky right now. This week they're playing the Denver Broncos, who definitely, I think, might have the crown for maybe most disappointing team in the NFL this season. But the Brute Force, Ravens 8.5-point favorites, 39.5 is the over-under. What say you?
Yeah, so I'm not going to go on a soliloquy on the Ravens, but what I will say is that the Ravens can't hold a fourth quarter lead to save their lives. I mean, they continue to blow lead after lead, and it's cost them on many occasions this season. So I agree with you, Tom. I think that they're in trouble. I think that the Bengals are going to come up and win this division shortly, and I think they could be sitting out of the playoffs potentially. So I think the the Ravens are in trouble. But this week they're certainly not because Russell Wilson can't score to save his life. He couldn't beat Sam Darnold. So, it's embarrassing what the Broncos have done. Hackett, see you later at this point. So I got to take the Ravens. And as much as I don't want to take them with the spread, I have to because the Broncos can't score, and it's disgusting.
Oh, listen, the Baltimore, between these two teams, I mean, it's really going to be an ugly game. Chris, Ravens, Broncos, obviously Broncos, major disappointment. Unfortunately, that was one we all missed the boat on. And the Ravens are in first place. I don't know how much longer they are going to be in first place, but I would imagine here they get back on track after the Jacksonville game. Let's say you.
Yeah, you know what? I go on the other side. I think Baltimore might start to take off because they're starting to get a little healthier now, right? They got Andrews back last week. Gus Edwards came back last week. And this week they're getting J.K. Dobbins back. So I think that running game is going to get going again. So, I mean, I know they're playing Denver, and like you said, Russell Wilson is just horrendous this year, and that team just doesn't score points. Denver's defense is going to keep them somewhat close, but I think the Ravens win this game pretty easily.
Billy, Ravens and Broncos. Again, Broncos pretty much major disappointing season. And Baltimore is in first place. It's probably going to come down to that last matchup they have in Cincinnati with the Bengals to decide the division. But what do you think here?
Yeah, I haven't been impressed with Baltimore. And you know what? Broncos County, let's ride all the way to our 9th loss of the season. They're awful. They're awful. There's no way to describe it. They're just terrible. Russell Wilson, I don't know. I don't know what happened.
I heard today that he's actually playing himself out of the Hall of Fame. I heard by somebody was saying.
At this point, I've never seen. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback that good become this bad this fast. No, the Ravens win this one. I think they win it fairly comfortably. I think the Ravens defense is a little bit underrated. They struggled this year, but Russell Wilson's not going to do anything. I don't know if he's playing hurt or if he's just Maybe Pete Carroll's offense was just amazingly quarterback friendly and nobody knew it. But I know I need to see it from the Broncos before I pick them. The Ravens win this one comfortably.
Hey, you know what? That's an excellent point you made about Pete Carroll, and certainly Geno Smith is living proof to that. And Justin, Ravens, Broncos here. Ravens are big favorites. I would imagine Ravens could get back on track, or maybe the Broncos kind of find a way to actually win one. But they've played in many close games for what that's worth. But what do you think here?
Well, we all know that this game was lost when Ciara threw a birthday party for Russell Wilson, and apparently only half the team showed up. They don't like this guy. They don't. Like, teammates openly don't like Russell Wilson. Like, it was a relief in Seattle that he's gone, and they're rallying around Geno Smith. Nobody wants to rally around Russell Wilson, and they're a horrendous football team. And the Ravens, the kings of the choke, all they do is choke away games. All 4 losses. I think they have 4 losses. All 4 losses. Double-digit fourth-quarter leads, and they lost.
The Giants game was one of those, and not too long
they
ago.
Were up,
also.
I think 20 to 10 with 6 minutes to go in that Giants game. Don't worry, the Broncos not this time. That's not happening. Ravens are going to win very comfortably. Lamar Jackson is going to have a field day.
Let me get to a bunch of comments. Carlos says USC giving up points. LOL. The Donkeys have packed it in for the season. Hackett is one and done. Maybe the Walton family gives him a job as a greeter at Walmart. Well, I don't know. I guess stay tuned, right? Ron Laird says Ravens win. College all-star team could beat the Broncos right now.
They couldn't.
Well, this is a game Russ has to step in and take over. If not good. He needs to make plays to show that Denver's D can be. Denver's defense has played
Denver
okay
has
most
top,
of the season.
Denver has a top, very good
The
defense.
defense has not been the issue for Denver. They can't score offensively, and that's why the coach is going to be gone, and that's why, as some have said, Russell Wilson going to be playing himself out of the Hall of Fame. This will be a low-scoring game. Ravens need to be wary. I think Baltimore wins. I would be a little bit kind of concerned about the 8.5. I do kind of partially agree there, but we go based on wins and losses, and it would be very hard for me to see Baltimore not winning this game here at home. And considering the way Denver has played, blowing leads to the Raiders, and even the way they played in Carolina last week, and so I have here Baltimore winning. I'm going to say 20-10. So I agree it's going to be a low-scoring game. And the Brute Force Browwise, this is another game I'm very, very excited to pick, and you know what I'm talking about here. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers, the resurgent Pittsburgh Steelers against the tied for first place Atlanta Falcons in another game that is a true pick'em game. Although I was hearing some different people almost kind of down on the Steelers, which is kind of hard for me to hear because Kenny Pickett has played, I think, really well the last couple of weeks, and the Steelers got a nice win on Monday night, and I thought Kenny Pickett played pretty well against the Bengals as well in a Sunday 4:25 CBS game, and Steelers are 1-point favorites on the road against the Falcons, so it's pretty much a toss-up. And 42 is the over-under. And the Brute Force, I know where you're going, but if you do want to maybe change your mind, jump on the bandwagon, join the club, and certainly would love to see you pick the Steelers, but I know you're not going to. So upset special, I'm sure, coming on the board.
I'm going to be honest with you, you Steeler fans and the terrible towel and all that nonsense, okay? Listen to me. I had to think about this one. And listen, I can't tell you that I'm not going to come on this show and give the Steelers at least some credit. Every week I come on here and tell you.
You like the Steeler bomber jacket that Mike Tomlin was. I actually was looking on maybe buying one. I actually was like, maybe I should buy one. They look good on them.
Are you trying to aggravate me on this show? I mean, listen.
Yes, it brings ratings, yes.
I mean, listen, I actually really consider taking the Steelers in this game. All right, but the one reason why I'm taking the dumbest team, all right, even though they're dumb, all right, they're playing for something. They need this game badly. All right, and they're playing at home where they've at least been somewhat respectable. The last couple of games against the Chargers, they lost by 3, but it was a good game. They beat the Panthers. They've been competitive at home in most of their home games. So I'm going to say this is a close game. And listen, I'll say exactly what you said, Tom. Pickett's playing better. The Steelers look better, but they're still not great, and they'll still finish under 500 for the season. So this will be another loss. The Falcons will win in a close game, but I just think the Falcons need it so bad, and I actually think they might win this division.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you on the last part because somebody has to win that division. I was thinking about that this morning. This division is like, it's it's brutal. Chris, Steelers Falcons classic pick'em game. What do you think here?
Ugh. You know what? I originally had the Falcons, but you know what? The more I actually looked at some of the game last week, surprisingly, the Pittsburgh Indianapolis game. Pittsburgh actually looked pretty decent on the road, no less. You know what? I'm going to switch it. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I don't know why, but I think Pittsburgh's going to squeak out a victory here. I don't trust Mariota. Pittsburgh's defense is going to force a couple of turnovers in that game. So I see Pittsburgh with I don't know if it's an upset, but it's like a pick'em game anyway.
Yeah, it's a pick'em game. This is
Right.
not to me an upset. No way. This is not either team. You could tell me
It's an
the
upset to
Falcons
watch it,
win.
I think. That's what it's more of an upset alert about. It's
Yeah.
just a game. So,
you know
yeah,
what?
I'll give me Pittsburgh.
Billy, Steelers, Falcons. I mean, I do actually feel the Steelers have played a little bit better of late, and the Falcons are kind of where they were last season. But somebody has to win, and who do you think?
Yeah, somebody has to win because we're all going to lose with this game being on. But somebody's going to win. I don't feel confident. The Steelers looked decent last week. I still think Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the NFL. I'm going to take the Steelers because I have to. I'd pick somebody, and it's the Steelers. That's
All right, fair enough. And Justin, for you, Steelers and Falcons. Pretty much, I don't think there's anything much more to say about it. And what do you think?
TJ Watt's made a big difference, hasn't he? That Pittsburgh defense looks like a whole new animal right now. Give me Pittsburgh in this game. I really like the steps that Kenny Pickett's taken. I think we're going to see some of those Trevor Lawrence steps next season. But I think he's making those small steps right now, and he's playing some good, careful football and making some good throws. And Najee Harris should be good to go. So give me Pittsburgh.
Let me get to a bunch of comments. Carlos Torres Chavez said here, Denver may squeak a win via field goal, but he then says, watch out for the Falcons. Yes, the steel curtain has been raised. He likes the Steelers, which I had no doubt that John Gonzalez wasn't going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dirty Bird's going to dance. Well, Carlos, you kind of said that last week against the Commanders, although to be fair, I was kind of wondering about the play calling on that last drive. I was actually watching the game. Pittsburgh beats the Dirty Birds. Falcons 21-14. Gonna win respect. Brutus all talk on Friday nights. He sends me messages during this week telling me how much he loves Pittsburgh.
Oh, stop. Don't you lie on this show. Stop lying.
Hey,
That's a lie. I don't say no damn Steelers love. Stop it.
Falcons win a close game. This one was a tough one to pick from Joey Bostrom. Mariota will run in the touchdown. He doesn't care about trust. Pickett is not careful. Steelers are 3-3, I believe, since they've changed quarterbacks. And I think the last 3 or 4 weeks, the Steelers have shown that they're coming together a little bit. And they've got some wins under their belt. And I think the quarterback is growing. And Tomlin always finds a way to keep his teams competitive. And I kind of feel like the Falcons were in the same spot as the Colts. And both teams were kind of similar in some of the play calling on their last drives. And I like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I always pick the Steelers, but I actually now have some reasons to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm a little bit more confident each and every week in seeing what Kenny Pickett brings to the table. The defense is there, and I kind of think that the Steelers do win here. I would say 24-17, something like that. Kind of screams basically right around 42 is the over-under, and because Chris is going to run here in a few minutes, I'm going to run to the Vikings and Jets, and I'm going to try to go as quick as I can with that. So I'll go with the brute force first, and the brute force Vikings and Jets. And I was listening to talk radio, and it seemed like a lot more people were confident on the Jets than I would have thought here in this spot. But the brute force, I was so surprised to see that the Vikings, their plus differential here for a team that is 9-2, maybe John Gonzalez is on something, is only a +5. So I'm almost expecting you here, the brute force, to kind of go in the spot here after seeing Mike White and seeing the team get a little pep in their step. And are you going with the upset alert here, or do you like Kirk Cousins and your uncle's Minnesota Vikings here?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say this before I pick the game. My Uncle Rob and also my Aunt Hillary are going to the game in Minnesota. Nice. Uncle Rob's a Minnesota Vikings fan, and Aunt Hillary's a New York Jets fan. So,
ooh.
She says she's going to be wearing the green, so that you're going to see someone in green in that crowd there. All right, so ultimately we will have some family at this game. With that being said, all right, this is a tough game. And listen, I'm not exactly confident with what I'm saying. It could go a lot of different ways, okay? But I'm going to be the Debbie Downer. I'm going to pick Minnesota to win. I think Minnesota in a close game, is going to win. Mike White's going to play well again. I think he's going to move the ball. They're going to run the ball. They're going to make it tough on Minnesota's offense. I like Sauce Gardner in this matchup against Justin Jefferson, who I'm going against in fantasy. So I'm hoping for a good game of Sauce Gardner. But I just think this game's going to be like 17-17, close. And I think that the Vikings will find a way to squeak it out. So I will say this. The Jets will cover the spread, but the Vikings will win. So I'll take the Vikings.
That's an excellent analysis. Chris, I know I'm going to let you pick this game. Then I'm going to let you bounce if you want to plug anything else off because I know you got to run. But obviously, Jets look good. And I'm sure you and Sharman are going to talk about this game quite in depth for us tomorrow on Sportswire Radio. But do the Jets gain some momentum here and kind of put a firm grip on a playoff spot for now? Or do the Vikings kind of continue how they've played most of the season and eventually find a win?
You know what? I was surprised at the spread. I think Vegas has given us a lot of respect.
3-point
it's only
favorites.
3. Yeah, I thought it'd be a little bit more than that. I do actually like this matchup a lot for us, even though I know Minnesota's 9-2. But like you said, they're not a great team.
The +5 shocked me. The +5 on the differential was like, wow.
And Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins, right? I mean, you don't know what you're gonna get with that guy. The only thing that bothers me with the Jets is what we seen last week and the week before was a lot of missed tackles on this team, man. And that's got to get cleaned up because they're not going to be able to survive missing tackles against this Vikings team, especially Dalvin Cook if he starts running the ball. So, but saying all that, I think the Jets win this game, like a 24-20 game, maybe 2017 game, somewhere around there. I don't think it'd be high scoring. Defense is going to play big time in this game, and I'm hoping that the missed tackle situation is going to get better. So I'm gonna have to pick the Jets in this game.
Anything else you want to share before? Because I'll bring Randy Dillon on here in a few minutes. I know he's waiting, but I know you got to get out of here. Anything else you want to share for us on Sportswire? And I'm sure the rest of the games you'll give the force your picks for us for Sunday. Anything else you want to share before what you run?
I'm just losing. I'm just on E right now. I've been going to bed early, so I'm like half asleep right now. So.
Yeah, totally. I understand totally.
Hopefully, I'm on the mends. It's been a while.
I hope you feel better. My whole family's sick, and I'm the only one that hasn't got sick. It's like a miracle.
Yeah, that's how it was here too. But hopefully Monday we'll have the Talking Rivals for you, and then Wednesday we'll have the Liftoff Jets, and hopefully we're talking about a Jets victory, and hopefully, excuse me, sorry, and hopefully Monday we'll have some more news about some more baseball signings. Hopefully the DeGrom signing has kicked off some moves, and hopefully Judge will make his decision too. So we'll see. Have a good night, guys. Had a great time, man.
Feel better.
I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
All right, and that was Chris Pizzea of the Liftoff Jets. Sorry, Chris, we let you bounce there, but I have Randy Dillon on in a couple minutes. We'll let him come on. He's patient. But Billy, Vikings Jets. Obviously, Vikings very small favorites here. I guess Chris is right. Vegas has given the Jets a little bit of respect, but what's your thoughts on this matchup?
It's funny because coming into the year, I had this as a matchup that I thought was going to be kind of two teams that were more on the cusp of being in the playoffs. I've been impressed by both teams. This is a game that Zach Wilson would throw away if he was starting, but he's not starting. Mike White's starting, and I don't think he's a long-term starter, but I think he's good enough to get the job done in the game that the Jets. I think they just win this game. They cement their playoff spot. I think they not lock down a playoff spot, but I think they're a very good bet to be in. I'm gonna hit the Jets. I think the Jets match up very well with the Vikings. I've been impressed by their run defense recently. I think Sauce Gardner is gonna contain. You're not gonna stop Justin Jefferson, but I think Sauce Gardner can contain Justin Jefferson. And I just think these Jets wide receivers can really kind of run wild in this Viking secondary a little bit. So I'm taking the Jets here in the upset.
Fair enough here. And Justin, Vikings Jets certainly. Vikings 9-2, and maybe John Gonzalez was right all along. They're certainly an interesting 9-2, considering they're only a +5, and the Jets looked like they maybe have bounced back here strongly. So, what do you think here in this rather intriguing 1:00 game?
Well, for one, we have strength versus strength here. What is the best unit on the field? It's the Vikings offense and the Jets defense. Them going at it is going to be a fascinating matchup. And how often Sauce Gardner covers Justin Jefferson, that'll be remain to be seen, because a lot of times he lines up on the left side of the offense, which means DJ Reed would cover him, which DJ Reed's had a tremendous year. So I have no issues with DJ Reed trying to slow down Justin Jefferson. He's going to get his. I know that. But one thing that nobody's talking about is Christian Darrisaw is not going to play for the Minnesota Vikings, their left tackle. And that's a huge loss for the Vikings because the Jets' defensive line, the pass rush, the way they rotated 10 different guys, is going to be able to get to Kirk Cousins. And I think that's going to be their biggest strength in this game. And I do think the Jets pull off the upset, but it's going to be close. And I think that this time they're going to be able to turn Kirk Cousins over. And I think they're going to do it by that pass rush, and they're going to force a bad pass. And I think Mike White, with that secondary of Minnesota, which is not all that good, I believe Cam Dantzler is still out, one of their top corners. It's going to be a struggle. A lot of receivers run very, very wide open against this Minnesota defense, and they can be scored on. Remember, Mac Jones threw for over 300 yards last week, and Mac Jones is not all that good. So, I think Mike White, as long as Mike White takes what is given to him, like the Bears game, he doesn't have to be as good as the Bears game, but if he kind of plays the same way and kind of just takes what's given to him, he's going to do just fine. And the name Mike White stand. I think Mike White plays well again.
All right, well, we'll find out here before I get to Randy Dillon. We'll spend a few minutes on hockey. I can't spend all day on hockey, Randy, unfortunately, but I'll spend 5 or 10 minutes on it. We'll go shotgun on the rest of the games. I can't get a soliloquy. I just got to go your game and go from there. I'll try to be respectful of everybody and give everybody a shot. Ron Laird says Vikings win late. John Gonzalez says, I love Mike White. Jets getting a lot of respect with the line, but with that said, I got Minnesota.
Why is he picking Minnesota?
He just told you why. He just told you why, though.
He didn't tell you why. The reason why is because he's trying to keep ahead in the standings. All right? He wants to pick what I'm picking. So
but if you were in his spot, what would you do? You do the same thing.
He's tempting me to switch my pick now. Come on, John. Really?
Well, you go first. You already picked. You can't change your pick after you pick.
I'm telling you, it's a strategy. He's starting to get to it. He's trying to pick what I pick so he can stay ahead of me.
You do the same. Listen, you as a coach do the same thing when you're behind in a game in the last 5 minutes. You foul players, right, to give your team more possessions. No, he's doing the same thing. He's making sure that he keeps himself in a good spot like anybody else would do. I mean,
what?
Listen,
my rival.
Carlos Ortoro Chavez says, Jets will crash and burn and blow this game. Defense is key. Cousins and the Vikings have too much to try to cover. Mike White needs a 5+ game break before playing again. He doesn't fare well back-to-back games. He's referring to last year. Joseph Bostrom here. I was going to say Joey Bostrom, but Jets win. Just hope they can continue to move the ball. Minnesota is 9-2, but they haven't played like it. We're all waiting for Randy. Chris, which he already gave his picks. The Calgary sensation, Randy Dillon, has appeared. But I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings because I think I'm going to call this. I don't trust the Jets in this spot. I just don't trust the Jets in Minnesota. And despite Minnesota being 9-2 and being, again, a plus differential of +5, and they have to have a record for a team at 9-2 at this point to be only a +5. I mean, I've never heard that before. I've literally never. Now the Vikings losing to Dallas 40-3, I'm sure
that killed it right there because they went to -2 after that game, and they won by 7 against the Patriots, so it went back
But I'm going with the Vikings because I do think that the Vikings do find a way. And what's the adage that we've said here this season? Long as Kirk Cousins doesn't play in prime time, he's playing in a 1 o'clock spot. He should do just enough to be able to win. And I kind of think
he nixed that last week because he did play well in prime time. So maybe he's now due for a 1 p.m.
It was Thursday night though. It was a Thursday. I guess you could say that. Yeah, fair enough. And before we get into Randy Dillon and spend a few minutes on the NHL, John Gonzalez wants to remind the Brew Force that your meds are losing strength. No, your voice might be losing strength, but because we have multiple people here, we're able to rest the voice and those vocal cords a little bit. But Randy Dillon, I know you're waiting here. Obviously, you're here with our spot. And Randy, I want to talk very quick because I got Billy McInerney here, and I'll spend a few minutes on it here before we come back to the rest of the picks. I got a bunch of games I got to go shotgun with. But the New York Rangers, I'm trying to figure it out here. This was a team I thought was going to be a sure bet to make the playoffs. I thought that they would be a sure bet to go pretty deep again in the Eastern Conference. And I'm looking at it now, and right now, I'm not even sure if they're going to make the postseason because we're past NHL U.S. Thanksgiving, and now we're going into Christmas, and right now, it looks like they're going to be in a dogfight to make the postseason here. And what's going on with the New York Rangers?
The Rangers, I think it's a myth of everything, and Billy will get into this a little bit more. But I think, one, Shesterkin hasn't played up to the level he's been up to. For some reason, Gerard Gallant has given a lot more games to Yaroslav Halak than he should. Halak, over the years, have really gone hill as a backup. Like, he should not be playing too many games. So, and I think the big thing for the Rangers is just something not clicking. The defense is giving up more chances than usual. They're not shutting down. The offense is not going as strong. We saw last year, Chris Kreider, 50 goals. He's not giving that offense. But also that secondary scoring, I think, is not there for the Rangers. And the big thing I was intrigued was Ryan Reeves traded last week. And Billy can talk a little bit more about this. Reeves was a guy that was kind of one of the fun guys you like to have in a room everyone likes to have. And I think Reeves was kind of a leader in that situation. And they traded him. And then there's just something not clicking with the Rangers. And they addressed the free agent. They got Vincent Trocheck. He's had a decent year. But there's something not connecting with the Rangers. I don't know what it is. They got to find this soon because you're right. They're losing ground here. The Islanders lost today. But they got to find ways to pick it up because Pittsburgh has found their game. You don't know if Washington's going to be up or down, but you don't want to get trapped in that wild card because you're not catching the Devils. And I think Carolina's on their own as well. So if you want that third spot, you got to find something too. But for the Rangers, I don't know what they're missing.
Billy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on this team. I might jump the gun on Brad Dolan time a little bit because he also owns the Rangers, and
go for it.
Certainly, his edict of bringing a bunch of guys who can't actually play but hit a lot of people has not helped things. They traded Pavel Butchev for Sammy Blais, who's been completely useless. And I'll be honest, I am starting to see why Gerard Gallant does not last long with teams. The line decisions this man is making is baffling me. They started the year great. They looked very good. They had lines that were working. And then they had a brutal period against the Red Wings, and he changed the lines up. They have not worked since then, and he will not go back to them. For the love of God, Vitaly Kravtsov, who has been the best player they've had the last 2 games, was a healthy scratch for 6 straight games because he wanted to have Ryan Carpenter or I can't think of the guys he had in the lineup. These fourth liners, Ryan Carpenter, Sammy Blais, Barclay Goodrow hasn't been that good. And, you have this kid who's been an electric player for you. You haven't played him. He has scored a goal today. And he's so good at the little things that people seem to think he's not good at. And frankly, the power play has been awful. They're not scoring on the power play, and they refuse to change. They refuse to change anything. They need to get Alexei Lafreniere on the top unit. They need to get Vincent Trocheck off that top unit. For no other reason than they get another lefty in the top unit. Halak's been playing too much. I completely agree with Randy. And Jacob Trouba has been playing injured and is seriously diminished. But the rate they're going, today they blew 2 leads to the damn Senators. Not even in Ottawa. They're at home. They lost 2-goal lead to the Devils, lost 2-goal lead to multiple teams. I think they lost 2 leads to the Red Wings a few weeks ago. This team cannot hold leads. They crumble every time things go wrong. And it feels like Gerard Gallant is just disconnected from the locker room in a way that is not acceptable for a coach. I honestly have my doubts he makes it to New Year's as the Rangers coach at this point.
Wow.
It's been that kind of a year with an impatient owner, and I don't.
But he hasn't lasted long in prior stops as well.
3 years with a team.
He only played.
I always thought it was the teams. After sitting through this year, I kind of get it. He's very stubborn, and I think he just. I don't even know how to explain it, but I feel like he doesn't have a pulse of a locker room. Specifically after a particularly brutal loss last week, when his quote was, the players need to talk about it and figure it out. Bro, that is your job. You are the coach. You need to be in there helping them figure this out. So I don't know how long his leash is anymore, to be completely honest with you. They look bad. They lost the Senators tonight. I have no confidence in them right now. Zero, none at all. And until I see something that changes that, I'm going to feel the same way. So they look bad right now. They're not a playoff team to me right now, and that's a shame because they absolutely should be.
The chances were high that a coach from this tri-state area was going to get fired before New Year's, and
with the Rangers connection, by the way.
Well, I heard it on Randy's Hockey Fan Chat show with Neil Villapiano, and basically that was the thought. Oh, we thought Lindy Ruff was going to get fired right off the bat, but now that ain't happening, and it looks like Gerald Gallant, who obviously took the Rangers, who were up in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and the Rangers are definitely in trouble. And then
and Billy's right, something just does look off. And I mean, I don't watch obviously as much Rangers as he does, but I just saw them on Monday night play the Devils, and the Devils. Once they got their legs under them, because the Rangers scored a couple goals in the first three minutes of the game, right? But then the Devils start getting their legs under them, and they get a quick goal, and next thing you know they're back in it. Next thing you know it's tied, and then next thing you know they take the lead, and once the Devils start coming with that barrage, the Rangers just did not have the speed. Once the game opened up and the Devils were able to play with their speed, the Rangers weren't matching that, and that's that's the main problem that the Devils present teams is that their speed is hard to match and it's hard to keep up with. And with the way that Ruff rolls four lines, everybody stays fresh.
Well, Justin, going back to the Rangers, like last week, their game against Edmonton, Billy, they were up 3-0. Bouchard scored a very fortunate goal, and after that, the Oilers just came scoring. They're really struggling for some reason where they can't close out teams. Where last year they could close out, or was it more Sisirkin holding them out the four? He's struggling as well, but there's not many pieces that change into that team where I don't understand where they should be better than what they are.
Yeah.
Let me get to a bunch of comments. I actually have a bunch of comments from Carlos Otoro Chavez on it. We'll come back to the NFL picks. We'll go shotgun on him. It's going to be just literally just give me who your team is, and that's it. Too soon to make predictions. I disagree because we're at the third of the season through. The third.
75% of teams in a playoff spot at Thanksgiving make the playoffs. We're not too soon, I don't think.
That's listen, 100% in agreement with it, especially when you have teams later on the season playing for the 1 point and everything else.
In the NHL, it's very hard to fall into a hole early on and expect to.
You have to go on a run that what Montreal, Ottawa made a few years back, or Columbus.
St. Louis a couple years ago, they fired the coach and then ran.
You're gonna have to go on.
2017.
Edmonton last year had to go on a big run. I mean, you're gonna have to go on a big run to make the playoffs. But bunch of different comments here. Rangers need to play better, not depend on speed game, too many passes. Just shoot it. New York Rangers get points. I kept saying that Rangers should have gone with a former player and knives sharpen knives. Rangers are not as fast and overskate and do not organize. They fall short. And very quickly before we go back here into this NFL picks, NHL standings as where we are here in the Atlantic Division. Boston continues to steamroll. Toronto has gotten back on track, 15-5-5. Lightning are in third. Carolina has overtaken the Islanders now. They've won 3 straight. They're a point ahead of the Islanders. Islanders also have played one more game than Carolina. Devils 19-4-1. lost yesterday to Nashville in overtime. Got a point though, down to
That was
nothing.
and
Yeah.
that was just real quick. That was frustrating.
Yeah,
Thomas,
The way that
before we
I got
quit-
two real quick, Randy. I got 2 minutes
quick
because
thing,
I got to
just
run
wanna talk
games.
quickly about goaltending because this year's been an
2 minutes. I'm gonna cut you, so you got 2 minutes, very quickly.
I really want to quickly touch on some goaltending because this year goaltending has been a real mix where a lot of the top goaltenders last year, Sturkin, Markstrom, Saros, these guys were all top goalies and they have struggled mightily this year, and I think this affects their play. Edmonton, they signed the big goalie in Jack Campbell. He's now taking a backup role. And then for the Leafs, we all thought, myself including, that Ilya Samsonov and Matt Murray would be at the bottom of the league in save percentage, one of the two best duo right now in the league. So goaltending this year has been very strange, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these teams we thought are being good struggle because the goalies covered up their mistakes, and this year it's not happening.
And that's why we've got some strange teams where they are in different spots. I mean, the Kraken, to me, I don't know how the Kraken are where they are.
I saw them play yesterday. They
played a game the other day. It was like 8-7 with the Kings. It was
in overtime against them.
Yeah.
That was one worth the money if you were there in that building.
Well, I wish I had a seat for that. Joey Bosham says Rangers are in trouble. John Gonzalez says I'm in first place, and he wants the Brute to stop scratch. So I'm going to go shotgun here because I'm running out of time here. So I'm going to go shotgun on some games. You're just going to give me who do you think wins in like 20 seconds on why. Brute Force, I'm going to go back to you. And Seahawks-Rams. Seahawks 7-point favorites here over the Rams on the road. 40.5 is the over-under. What do you think?
Yeah, Seahawks, because the Rams have checked out. They're living the fast life in Los Angeles. No Donald, no Stafford, no Cup, no team. Seahawks win.
Rams, I think, are on their way to maybe having the worst season of Super Bowl champion. Billy McInerney, Seahawks 7-point favorites over the Rams. 40.5 is the over-under. What do you think, real quick?
Yeah, I mean, Brad took exactly what I was going to say. Seahawks win big. Rams are checked out. They're looking for golf courses.
Justin, Seahawks, Rams, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'd be Seahawks. I mean, with John Wolford starting the quarterback, I mean, it's just going to be another mess for the Rams on offense. Give me Seattle.
Let me go to some of the guys here. Ron Laird likes the Seahawks. Joey Bostrom likes the Seattle Seahawks. John Gonzalez likes the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks. The Geno Smith magic carpet ride continues, albeit against the Los Angeles Rams. Brute Force, this game I'm actually really intrigued by. My favorite game here, the 4 o'clock hour, believe it or not. That is the Raiders and the Chargers. Raiders have really played a little bit better the last couple of weeks. Josh Jacobs has kind of maybe been the best offensive player in the league this year. It could all depend on if he's going to play on Sunday. 1-point favorites the Raiders are at home against the Chargers. Chargers kind of had an interesting season, kind of pulled one out there against the Cardinals on the 2-point conversion there to win it. 50.5 is the over-under. Very quickly, what do you think?
I hate the Raiders. Let me just make that a statement. I hate the Raiders. Every time I pick against them, they win, and every time I pick for them, they lose. So I can't get this team right, but I'm going to pick against them again. The Chargers win. I think the Chargers need this win to stay in this playoff hunt, and they're the better team, in my opinion, even though the Raiders have won 2 straight. I think the Chargers are a better team, so give me the Chargers.
Billy, Raiders-Chargers classic pick'em game. Obviously, a rematch of last year's game to decide the postseason, the last spot in the NFL playoff situation. We saw how kind of that ended, but what do you think here?
Yeah, I think Justin Herbert's getting healthier by the week. I think he's looking better by the week. I think he's going to start reminding people why he deserves to be in the conversation with the best quarterbacks in the league. I got the Chargers winning this one.
Justin, Raiders-Chargers. Raiders 1-point favorite here. Chargers definitely need a win. And Raiders have won a couple in a row, and they've got Josh Jacobs. And should he play, he's a big factor as always. But what do you think?
Raiders are riding the good mojo, but I think the Chargers are going to win this in a close one. Again, yeah, like Billy said, Herbert's getting healthy. The receivers have gotten healthy. DeAndre Carter had a tremendous week last week. And plus you have, with Keenan Allen back, I mean, it's more loaded.
All right, let me get to John Gonzalez. He likes the Raiders. Joey Bostrom likes the Raiders. Ron Laird also says Utah wins the Pac-12. They beat USC 48-24, and they definitely stomped them there.
100% and USC's chance at a playoff spot.
And Ron Laird likes the Chargers. I like the Raiders because I think the Raiders have played well the last couple of weeks. I think they've gotten their mojo. I think, as maybe Billy had said it, I think they've really kind of put themselves back on track. And Josh Jacobs is a fun player, and I really like what they've done here. And I kind of think that the Chargers, I cannot figure out at all. They're, to me, the classic Jekyll and Hyde team. So I'm going to say here, Raiders get on track and certainly build for the future. Brute Force, we have also next here the Chiefs and the Bengals, a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. Chiefs 2-point favorites here. Bengals, though, are at home. Bengals have gotten back on track, winners of 7 of their last 9, but the Chiefs are the Chiefs in their usual spot. Are you going upset special here? Because I kind of feel like you might be.
No. I'm taking the Chiefs to win this game. The best player on the field is Patrick Mahomes. He's arguably the MVP of this season as well so far. And I like what Cincinnati's doing, but the Chiefs are on a different level right now. Give me the Chiefs in a thrilling game, though. Close game, Chiefs win.
Billy, Chiefs, Bengals, 53 is the over-under. Chiefs, 2-point favorites here. Bengals, though, are at home. Rematch of the AFC Championship game. What do you think?
Yeah, we talked about the Rams having a disappointing season as Super Bowl champions. The Bengals have not done well they were coming off Super Bowl either. Even if they had, though, like Brad said, Patrick Mahomes is the best player on the field. The Chiefs are going to win this game. I think it's going to be tight, but the Chiefs are going to pull out the win.
Justin, for you, Chiefs and Bengals. Chiefs 2-point favorites. Bengals 53 is the over/under. What do you think?
Yeah, Cincinnati's really got their mojo going on right now, and I think this is going to be an all-time classic. But I think Kansas City's going to pull it out. I think Patrick Mahomes just proves that he's the difference. I think he's the MVP of the league. And
Billy, just before you go, I know you'd asked us in the chat. We're going to pick Giants last. We always like to pick the local teams last. We did it for Chris because he was bound. Yeah, he had to bail. So let me get to some of the guys here. John Gonzalez likes the Chiefs. Ron Laird likes the Chiefs. Joey Bostrom likes the Chiefs. John Gonzalez says Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. Even Brute knows that. That's why I'm going.
I agree. I think they are the best team.
I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals, though, because for whatever reason, I'm starting to believe a little bit in the Bengals. I kind of was convinced with their win last week, and it is a rematch here, the AFC Championship game. Although my gut tells me that Kansas City probably should win, but I kind of think that Joe Burrow right now and the Bengals are riding their momentum, and something tells me that right now they've got the AFC North on their line. They really need to win that division. So that's what I think here. Brute Force, 49ers and Dolphins. I mean, 49ers defense the second half these last 4 weeks, I believe, have not given up a point at all, and the Dolphins with Tua, all they do is win with him, and 49ers 4-point favorites, 46.5 is the over/under. What do you think here, very quickly?
Yeah, the key to this game is the Q, and the Q means questionable, and San Francisco's got a lot of players that are questionable. So I'm worried about that. We'll see what happens, whether those guys play or not, but I'm going to take Miami. Miami right now is rolling hot. They're not going to a cold weather climate. That's where we all want to see them play, but we're not going to see it this time. I think Miami pulls it off because of Tua's offensive excellence right now, and the fact that the 49ers will not be completely 100% healthy.
Billy, 49ers and Dolphins. 49ers seem like they've gotten back on track and kind of where they should be. And Miami, all they do is win. And Miami, I believe, has a very good shot at the AFC East, and they win also with Tua. And I think two similar teams for different reasons. But what do you think?
Yeah, a little teacher for a student this week, too, with the Dolphins having been intended. I think ultimately Hill and Waddle's run after catch ability lets you neutralize the 49ers pass rush a little bit. So I got the Dolphins winning, which should be a very good game.
Absolutely going to be a good game for sure. Justin, 49ers at home against the Dolphins. Dolphins here in a spot where I think they can kind of prove to some people they're for real. But what do you think?
Listen, Miami's got no answer for run CMC. And the 49ers defense is going to be fierce. It's going to be unlike anything Tua has seen this season. And I think San Francisco is going to handle their business at home. Give me the 49ers.
John Gonzalez likes the 49ers. So does Ron Laird. Joey Bostrom says San Francisco wins a close race. Niners team to watch in the NFC. CMC,
I've said
Little,
the last couple of
Debo,
weeks,
and
I think
Bosa.
the 49ers are the best team in the league, in the NFC.
That's why I'm going with the Miami Dolphins, because I think the Miami Dolphins, they have something to prove here, and they're in a big spot as well. And I kind of feel like this is kind of the game here where they could really step up here on a big stage, and I kind of think that they come away with a victory, and they've got something to play for also. So give me the Miami Dolphins and the Brute Force. This has got to be one of the more clunkers of the week here for a Sunday night game. I'm surprised this did not get flexed. I would have thought 49ers Dolphins would have really, or the Chiefs Bengals would have been the Sunday night game. But then again, the Chiefs have played what like 7 times on Sunday night this year. It feels like
CBS protected it. They wanted the game.
And then we could have at least got 49ers Dolphins. I would have took the 4, or even Raiders Chargers. I would have probably took the Raiders and Chargers.
Yeah, you could have put Colts Cowboys on Fox.
This is just a terrible Sunday night game. This is just has to be. I hope this is the worst one we have going forward. But I would want to spend no more than like 10 seconds on this to brute force, unless you want to go upset alert here. But Cowboys 10.5-point favorites over the Jeff Saturday hapless Colts.
Yeah, hell no. The Cowboys are winning. You know, I don't like to say that proudly, but they will win, and the Colts still head to the golf course, just like Billy said.
Oh, they'll be heading to the golf course, and Jeff Saturday will probably be back in his spot as an ESPN NFL analyst. But Billy, Cowboys, Colts, what do you think?
Yeah, that Jeff Saturday honeymoon didn't last that long, did it? I think he forgot he had timeouts. The Cowboys are going to win this game. The Colts suck.
I would think as an NFL analyst, when you watch all these games in Bristol, you would kind of know these scenarios. I don't know. Look, but be that as it may. But Justin, Cowboys, Colts, this is going to be, I would imagine, one of the more clunkers, at least based on the standings in the Sunday night schedule that we're going to get here coming up. But what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Thanksgiving's arriving a little late for Micah Parsons because he is going to feast on Matt Ryan in this game. Cowboys in a blowout. This is going to be a disgusting battle.
I think we're all going to be in agreement on this one.
Actually, last week, he got some feasting done against the Giants.
Ron Laird, Cowboys. John Gonzalez, Cowboys. Joey Bostrom, Cowboys. I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys because there's nothing that would indicate why I would pick the Indianapolis Colts. Brute Force, Monday night game, Buccaneers and Saints. Buccaneers, I know Ron Laird's a huge Buccaneers fan, but I cannot figure out this Buccaneers team. Buccaneers are 3.5-point favorites against the Saints, but the Saints have been the Bucs' kryptonite in the Brady era. But what do you think here in this Monday night game, which very well could decide first place in the NFC South?
Yeah, well, you talk about the Sunday night game being awful. How about this one? I mean, this is pathetic. This is another pathetic game.
I think I'd rather take this game, though. I think I'd rather watch this one.
I know it means something, so that's why it's more exciting. But yes. I'm going to take the Buccaneers, but I'm going to take the Saints with the spread. The Saints are going to keep it close. I think it's going to come down to the end. And unlike last week, Tom Brady will come through. Even though he didn't come through against the Browns, he will this week against the Saints. I think they win. The late field goal wins it for the Buccaneers.
Billy, Bucs and Saints, first place Buccaneers, 5-6. Saints are alive. Well, everybody's alive in that division, even the Panthers, because of the Bucs' troubles. What do you think here, though?
I think this is a horrible game. And you know what? I'm not going to pick against Tom Brady with a chance to put the division on ice at 6-6 for some reason. That's where we're at now at division. I think the Buccaneers win this game.
Justin, Bucs Saints, first place Buccaneers, pretty much again 5-6, and they are where they are, and the Saints are very much alive in that division. But what do you think here?
Well, the last couple of years, the Saints have had the Bucs number, but the Bucs were able to get a win early in the season. I think they're going to get another one. The Saints just can't generate enough offense. They're not going to be able to hold up with Tampa.
John Gonzalez likes Tampa. Joey Bostrom says Saints are a desperate team. Saints win a close one. Ron Laird says Saints always give us trouble, but Bucs win. # fire the cannons. John Gonzalez says Brute likes to make money. He keeps picking my teams. I'm going with the New Orleans Saints because the New Orleans Saints were in this spot last year on the road against Tampa, and they bumped them. And something tells me, I don't know, this Bucs team, I don't think they're right. I just don't think they're right, and I kind of think that New Orleans.
Head coach.
Well, you know what? I gotta say it, Ron Laird. I know you're a Bucks fan, but God forbid this Bucks team goes like 7-10. I think Bowles is done after this season. I think there's a very strong possibility that he doesn't come back, especially if this team, which was expected to go far, Brady coming back here, unretiring, he's in big doo doo. And I have here the New Orleans Saints, as I pointed out, for those different reasons. So one more game here, then I'll come back to Randy Dillon for a few minutes, and I'll get his thoughts on a few things in wrestling, and then we'll get out of here for the night. But the Brute Force, Commanders and the Giants. Oh, such an intriguing game here. Commanders are red hot. They're playing really well, and we're going to see these teams match up, I believe, 2 times here coming up in the next few weeks. So this is pretty much going to decide both teams' season. 2.5-point favorites. The Commanders are on the road, but what do you think?
Yeah, I said it last week, and I'm going to say it again. I think the Commanders are going to make the playoffs, and I think that this week is going to begin the reason why. The Commanders are going to win this game. I think they're going to go on the road against a Giants team that, listen, has been respectable all year long, has done a lot well. But I just think the Commanders are a team to be reckoned with. There's not a team you really want to be playing right now. Taylor Heineke's playing great football. The defense is getting better with Chase Young now back in there. And they're just formidable on different levels right now. Their run game has been great with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. So I think they don't have a lot of holes right now. Where the Giants, I like their run game. I like what Daniel Jones is doing, but their wide receivers don't scare me at all if I'm the Commanders. So I think the Commanders win this game, and Jake Supran is smiling somewhere in Washington, D.C.
Oh, he's definitely smiling because now everybody's going to want a piece of Washington Commanders tickets, and that's good for business. But, Billy, Giants are in deep doo-doo right now, I kind of feel. But help us out here. Or do the Giants maybe get back on track and salvage things and kind of keep the Commanders at bay? Or do the Commanders kind of continue their own Cinderella run here and just a really, really damn good NFC East?
Yeah, these are 2 teams that I think have both been very pleasant surprises for their fan bases. Look, the Giants' offensive line is a little bit banged up. I believe Evan Neal is still out. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I don't think he's playing. And this Commanders' pass rush is really fearsome, especially with Chase Young coming back. Ultimately, I just don't think the Giants' offensive line can hold up. I don't think they're going to run block particularly well. I don't think they're going to pass block particularly well. And the Giants are just not built to play from behind. So I got the Commanders winning this one.
Justin, Commanders, Giants. Commanders are red hot, kind of in the spot where the Giants were a few weeks ago. Giants desperately need a win here at home. They've just not been good in division play. And what do you think here in this matchup? Do the Giants get back on track, or do the Commanders continue their momentum?
I like Washington here. I mean, Saquon Barkley has looked like a shell of himself the last couple of weeks. And I know part of that has to do with some of the games that they've fallen behind in. Like the Detroit game, they were getting beat bad pretty early. And so that forced Daniel Jones to have to throw the ball a lot more often. But, I mean, you look at 3 of the last 4 games that the Giants have lost 3 out of their last 4, right? 20 carries, 53 yards. Okay, he goes off 35 for 152 against Houston. They win that game. 15 carries, 22 yards against a porous Detroit defense that has not stopped the run all year long, right? 22 yards on 15 carries. And then last week, just 39 yards on 11 carries against Dallas. Saquon Barkley is not the same player. And if Saquon Barkley is not the same player, the Giants offense is doomed. And they just don't have the receivers to run this offense the way it should be run. So I like Washington. Taylor Heineke will play well enough and do well enough, and that defense of Washington is going to wreak havoc.
All right, here, John Gonzalez and Ron Laird and Joey Bostrom. First up, Ron Laird says Commanders win. Joey Bostrom says Washington is playing really well. Giants are in trouble. Washington wins. John Gonzalez convinced me after the Thanksgiving game that he thought the Giants were going to struggle to 9-8, and he might have a point. Tricky game, could go either way. This is a tough week, but he likes Washington. And I'm going with Washington because, again, Washington's found a way to win these close games, and Barkley the last 2 weeks, and even Jones and that Giant, listen, the lack of offensive weapons, and I kind of feel like Washington, I think they're going to wind up getting into the postseason. I think John Gonzalez makes a point. We're going to see 3 teams in the NFC, and It's going to be Washington because Seattle right now I think is on the ropes. We're getting one team in the South. We're getting one team in the North. And I think San Francisco is going to probably win the NFC West. And that team that gets into the postseason, I think, is going to wind up being the Washington Commanders.
Yeah,
So I think,
I gotta tell you, I think the Giants are missing the postseason.
yeah, I tell you what, if the Giants lose these two games to the Commanders, and Billy, I hate to say it, the Giants are not going to make the
play
playoffs.
Philadelphia next week. That's no
Yeah.
picnic.
I think the Giants are in trouble. The Giants are. This is it's must win for both teams, but I think it's most especially must win for the Giants because the Giants
100%. Because you could definitely say it's a must, and from a local perspective, it's a must win for the Jets.
This is the biggest week. Yeah, this is the best week locally.
But the Jets are not like doomed if they lose to Minnesota.
No, but when New England is certainly lost, you got the Chargers. You're not so sure about, and so you have that breathing room.
The Chargers find a way to fall apart, and I said this was the year that they would not charge her, but they're going to charge her.
They're going to wind up charging to be right there at the last week, and they might just fall up. But this
Brandon
I think
Taylor will find some way to blow it.
This is probably the biggest week, I think, for the local football teams here, and both of them at the same spot in probably about 10 years, about 9 or 10, maybe about 10 years, about I'd say 2011.
I wish they would have split them up. I wish they would have put one of the games at 4:00.
Yeah, I hate when they have them at the same.
It's a heavy 1 o'clock week this week. Heavy 1 o'clock. But you know what? Giants are taking notice. I agree. But Randy Dillon, I want to come to you if you've been patiently waiting. Unfortunately, Randy, we're picking NFL games at this time of year. But what's up with William Regal? I see him on AEW. I'm expecting him and MJF to be together, and it looks like William Regal could be maybe heading elsewhere. Is that how I kind of saw him being written off that way?
Yeah, Tom is right. It is a sad day because honestly, I thought AEW had something golden along with the other fans. Similar to what Roman Reigns had with Paul Heyman, a wise man. I thought William Regal would have been the wise man for MJF, kind of do that backstage stuff, kind of be that kind of politician for him in the wrestling world. But looks like William Regal is heading back to WWE. He has I think his contract, what I've heard, his contract either expiring or he had a clause he can get out. And he pretty much, I think, with Triple H taking over, it's a no-brainer for him to go back to WWE. The effect those two had in NXT. My question is now, what do you do with MJF at that point? In what storyline direction? Because you had a great storyline with Blackpool Combat and how Regal helped MJF win Moxley. But now it's like, what do? You kind of broke him off with the group with Stokey, I can't remember their name, and those other guys, but now it's like you put them on their own, and now you're saying, okay, do you say his win against Moxley was kind of a fluke? Do you kind of then lose the title, win the title? This really hurts his value. And again, all his promos, I've never seen someone mention other wrestling people in so many promos. I honestly think MJF's walking because he doesn't feel the company pushing him up. And I think the thing with Regal,
they gave him the belt, though, Randy. They gave him the belt.
You can give someone the belt, but you got to make them the face. I still feel MJF, they still haven't made MJF the face of AEW. He should be the guy, like the John Cena of AEW.
But you can't do it there because they have so many different contracts. They brought so many.
And that's where I think in 2024 he will be leaving. Like, unless somehow they give him a long run with the title and put him over so much. But what I heard was they might even let Bryan Danielson beat him and then win the title back. But I feel that hurts his longevity.
Yeah, I don't like when you trade the titles back and forth. I don't know if you should give him a Roman Reigns like run, but I think you at least give him a little bit of time with the title, and I kind of agree with that here also. And for you, John Gonzalez wants to ask you, Randy, is it snowing in Calgary right now?
I'm not in Calgary right now, John. I'm in Vancouver.
You're in Vancouver.
It was snowing, so I was trying to go to the Capitals and Canucks game on Tuesday. It was snowing so bad, it took me 6 hours to go to a train station and back to my house that's only 5 kilometers away because traffic was so bad here. One of the worst
it took you wait, before anything else, it took you 6 hours to get home?
It took me 6 hours, Thomas Price, to go to a train station that's 5 kilometers from my house. I couldn't make it, so I had to turn back, which was I made it 4 kilometers, and then it took me another 5 kilometers to get home, a total of 6 hours.
So what was it like? Were you thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna die"?
I thought I wasn't gonna see Wednesday.
No, it's a serious question. I mean,
it was one of the most scary things in my life because traffic wasn't moving, nothing was happening, everyone was stuck, roads were closed. It was one of the most scariest moments.
Were there like other people in the same predicament as you?
Traffic was stuck back and forth. I lucked out and decided to take a back road. It could have been worse. I could have been stuck on a highway.
Were you driving or were you walking?
I was driving. It was probably better for me to walk home at that point, but I couldn't leave my car in the middle of the road.
No, I mean that's like, does that normally happen in an instance like this?
Yeah, it did. But Tom, I just want to go back to wrestling thing. One thing.
Go back to wrestling for 2 minutes because I don't mind. Go ahead.
I heard the report that The Rock's not locked in for Mania. They won't know till January 16th if he's a lock or not. I think.
So then, so who would you think they would go with at Mania? Because I mean, Sami Zayn would be, I guess, the guy you slot in maybe against Roman.
I think Sami Zayn's the guy you slot in, but there's no way he's going to be Roman. There's only 5 people I think that can take the title off Roman. Drew McIntyre, because we saw a Clash of the Cats. Seth Rollins, because Roman hasn't beat Rollins since 2014. Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt
would be the guy that I would believe, because there's unfinished business with that, but Bray Wyatt hasn't faced anybody yet, and because of the way they've built that character up, he would be the guy to me. If I had the pen, that would be the guy that I would like to slot in, but I think they're using him as an attraction.
Yeah. Cody Rhodes the other one, and the 5th one, and this is a dark horse.
I don't buy Cody Rhodes. I don't buy him for a second.
I think Gunther is probably one of the top guys right now that really building a name for himself and how he's built. But he's doing so well with the IC title, you can't.
Yeah, I think it's too early with him. I've heard Solo Sikoa would break off from the bloodline, which I think is too early. I think Bray Wyatt would be the guy I would go with, because I believe that Bray Wyatt's the only draw on his level. I just don't think Cody Rhodes is on the level to draw. Seth Rollins, to me, I think is doing a great job on Raw. I don't think I would want to see him back in that spot. Drew, to me, unfortunately, Drew was a hard luck champion because he was a COVID champion. And I just don't think, unfortunately, to me, it's like he's like, to me, a Kevin Owens. I just don't believe him as a champion.
Other than that, I don't have really look up and down the roster. There's not really any.
I don't even think, real quick before we get to closing, because I know we're getting late here, I don't even think that if you brought The Rock in, I would want to see The Rock take the title from Roman. I would be okay with The Rock beating Roman in a non-title match, but I would not want to see The Rock beat Roman. Because if Cena couldn't beat Roman when he came back, even though Rock is a bigger star, I would not want to see The Rock lose to The Rock beat Roman. I just wouldn't want to see it.
Only other one I could think of would be Orton, but right now with his back,
I think Orton might be done, bro. I think Orton.
I just hope Orton is healthy and all that.
I don't think we're going to see Orton, unfortunately, at that level. I think ultimately, if you're going to go there, it's got to be Bray Wyatt. But I kind of feel like they're not going to go there. He would be the guy. And I don't read the internet, the dirt sheet, because we do a lot of wrestling coverage on Sportswire. I'll be shot if I do some of that stuff, but.
I don't follow the dirt sheet too much. I have so many other places I follow and stuff to get my opinion. So,
but I feel like ultimately, before we get out of here, if I were going to say anybody to take the title off Roman, I believe Bray Wyatt, because of the unfinished business and because of the depth of his character. And if they build around him the way they look like they are, and the bloodline are faces, you could make that work. But I wouldn't do that by Mania. Personally, I think Roman should get at least another 9 months to a year with the title. If you would have asked me 4 months ago, I believe that Roman should have lost the title. Now I don't think he should lose it.
It's just gonna be who's gonna win Rumble.
I gotta give a plug real quick, because my very good friend Mr. Craven Rage, who's a champion in his own right over at Wrestling Champ, because I knew this was gonna happen. I knew somebody from wrestling was gonna come out of the woodwork, and he said he agrees with me. He thinks that Bray Wyatt is going to take Roman down. I think Bray Wyatt's the guy, man. He's the guy that makes the most sense. He lost the title to Roman.
It's just with Rumble so close, they just don't have enough time to build it. That's the only thing.
But you don't do it right now. You don't do it right now. I think that my point is that, to me, Roman should keep the title past Mania, and he should go at least to SummerSlam. I don't think Rock should take it. I don't think anybody else should take it. Bray, Tim, who else you got? I don't think Cody's believable. I'm sorry.
I think what's going to happen, Money in the Bank's supposed to return at Mania. Whoever wins that's going to cash in on Roman, which I think is going to be Seth, and Seth is going to take it.
I'm going to say last thing. I promise everybody last thing. I actually think Austin Theory could have been that guy, but because they kind of bungled that so stupidly, now the character he has, if they would have gave that character to him 4 months ago, I think he could have pulled it off.
I think
But
he could, and like I said, Money in the Bank Happy Mania, he could win in a game. So
he's not winning Money in the Bank again, though. He's not winning it
there's
again.
only one person ever win 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches. It's CM Punk. They want to erase that from history. So
Well, I don't know if Austin Theory's that guy though. I don't know.
he's not ready yet.
Seth Rollins, I could see wrestling Roman again. He does hold a disqualification win over him. There is a history, but we'll certainly find. Listen, we could talk wrestling all day, and I'll be back throughout the week on Sportswire wrestling coverage with Craven Rage Monday night, right after Monday Night Raw. So we'll talk about him in Wrestling Championship Entertainment, which, by the way, Craven, I'm wearing my WC Heat shirt, which you can follow them on Facebook at WC Heat, WCHeat.com. But you know what? We did a lot. We have a lot of coverage here to get to throughout the weekend on Sportswire Radio. So I'm going to let the guys get their closing thoughts. And Billy McInerney, I'm going to go to you because, Billy, you haven't been here in a while. I'm happy to see you. I like the facial hair you're growing. You're definitely getting into winter with that. You got the Mets garb you're rocking. You're copying the brute force there. So I'm going to give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug, share for us? I can't thank you enough, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tom. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a great show. So unfortunately, Chris couldn't make it to the end. Hope he feels better. I had that cold that's been going around. It wasn't fun. You can catch me on Twitter at WMCINE. And for closing thoughts, I'm available. I think the Rangers need to make a change. I think they need to make a significant change. And I think the only significant change they really can make is Gerard Gallant. So I think it's time. I think you got to try to save the season while you can and find yourself a new coach.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Billy, what I saw from the Rangers the last week, because I watched the Devils game a little bit because my brother, Justin, will appreciate this, has now become a New Jersey Devils fan because the Devils are winning. He actually texted me, Sean Bryce, and said, well, I'm watching hockey again, and I'm trying to find a team. And he said he can't be an Islanders fan because they're too far away. And he said the Devils make sense for him, and now they're winning. So I was watching the Devils-Rangers game a little bit while watching Monday Night Raw, and the Rangers, I'm definitely worried about Billy. So I could definitely see that with Gallant. And Gallant has always been on a short leash, and I think he's in doo-doo. And I think the Rangers are in doo-doo, and they have very little time to turn around. But, Justin, enjoyed the baseball banter show. I'll play it throughout the weekend. I look forward to, I'm sure, another one here. I'm sure on Jacob deGrom and much, much more. So I turn it over to you, pal, and anything you want to plug, share. Say any of your 3 picks also for the Sunday games as well, and anything else. And floor is yours, my friend, and fire away.
All right, yeah, we'll probably wait till midweek. Hopefully, some more free agents sign. I think the winter meeting starts next week, so I'm sure we'll start to get more of a flurry in terms of the free agency. And maybe Jacob deGrom's signing in Texas opens up a floodgate. And you know what? I hope the Mets have an active weekend because now there's lots of work to be done because this is a good baseball team, but a lot of work to do. So, and Ohio and for Ohio State, the door might have been open. USC getting blown out 47-24 tonight. You know, I got to imagine USC will not make the college football playoff at 11-2. So I'm pretty pumped to maybe see Ohio State in the college football playoff. As for where you can follow me on my Twitter at JGNLE12 and at BBallBanterSM as where you can find me.
All right, excellent stuff there, Justin. Keep up the great work. And Randy, lively discussion there. I enjoyed the wrestling talk. One of these days, maybe we got to do a post-wrestling show after one of these pay-per-views. But I do so much coverage of wrestling. I speak with so many people. I don't have the time. But I enjoyed the few minutes there with you. So I turn it over to you, my friend. Also, I enjoyed the hockey fan chat with our old friend Neil Villapiano, who, by the way, told me that he's going to join us one of these days on a Friday show. So good. Neil Villapiano has said he will come on, so I'm looking forward to that. Neil's always a lively discussion with him. He's also on Instagram now doing post-Devils game chat, so definitely follow the Devils State of Mind for that. So, Randy, I turn it over to you, pal. Anything else you want to share, say, hockey, wrestling, or anything else on your mind? And floor is yours, my man.
Thanks, Thomas. Final thoughts that's going to hockey. I think the days of sadly to say, the days of Alex Ovechkin running this league, rough shot's over. They're having a tough year. Tom Wilson's not coming back till late January now, and the team's struggling, and I don't think they're going to have enough to make it the playoffs. I just hope Ovi can get some goals, but it might be time for the Capitals to look elsewhere and start to rebuild rather than go in it where they don't have any assets after Ovi's retirement, because it could get ugly. But for the hockey fan chat, I actually have a Capitals fan I've talked with. We might do a show this week if my schedule allow me, and hopefully I can get that out before the holiday season. To follow me on Facebook, you can follow me at Randy Dillon, Twitter, Randy Dillon, DHILLON. And one quick thought on wrestling. I think what they're doing right now with Sami Zayn, how they're playing it out, is great.
I think it's the best storyline I've seen in a long time.
Taken the attention off where they can actually try to figure out what they're doing at Mania, because The Rock's not confirmed. Just give them time to buy something. But I'm looking forward to what he's going to do. Hopefully maybe he has a longer feud with an actual good match with KO at Mania, which could be something fun, or even an Elimination Chamber in Montreal. But definitely, he's doing a lot of great work for Sami. It's well-deserved.
I think, listen, this is the best storyline I've seen outside of course, what we cover on Sportswire, of course. I have to say that with a asterisk because, we cover a lot of wrestling companies and they've kept us alive. But in terms of WWE, I think it's the best storyline that they've had in ages. So I just want to put that there. So I am definitely looking forward to seeing what happens with him and the Bloodline. But great stuff, Randy. As always, look forward to having you next week. But while we didn't save the best for last, we definitely saved the biggest for last. And the Brute Force Brad Weiss, obviously looking forward to hearing how our boys did, our Plainview JFK boys JV team. Obviously, the season I know is underway. We've got a lot to cover or talk about that. Our SJ Long Island boys, obviously, are back on track. Watched them play this past weekend. Saw them in an exhibition against Stony Brook. We're back at home tomorrow. So college basketball is underway. We have college basketball coverage coming up here on Sportswire in the next few weeks before the holiday break. We have Five Towns basketball ahead. I want to cover some John Jay, the Brute Force, but the Bloodhounds this year really aren't good so far. So we're going to have to leave that as an asterisk. But I do turn it over to you, my friend, and very curious what you have to say. I know I was speaking with some of our Golden Eagles players. I was speaking with some of the guys during the week, and they've listened to some of the things we've said. So happy that the boys are still supporting us, and want to hear what you have to say for your Plainview JFK Hawks boys team and everything else. So closing thoughts, Dolan thought or two in there also, please throw in and fire away, my friend.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for another great week of the show. Thank you, Billy, Justin, Randy, and the rest of the crew, of course, Chris and Rob as well were here earlier for another great week of our show. So I will not talk Dolan time. That was Billy this week. He's got the hockey side of it. I don't need to talk about those damn New York Knicks. So don't count on it, John Gonzalez, if you're listening. But what you can count on is following me on social media. You can follow me at Bradley Weiss on Facebook, on Twitter at BradWeiss20, and searching either at BWeiss20, which is my personal page, or my coaching page, which is well underway, at Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram. So we're having fun with that. With that being said, unfortunately, my JV season got off to a tough start. We lost last night to St. Dominic 55-49. It was a one-point game late, Tom Bryce. We had a layup in transition. We missed. The other team came down the court and won, extended the lead, and we just couldn't get it from there. So it was a close, tight game, but unfortunately the boys couldn't get the job done. But we are hoping for a big learning experience, and we are excited for the rest of the season. Because last year, Tom, the team didn't score 49 points until the sixth game. So I was excited.
I remember offensively we struggled early on in the season.
So to start the season off on a good note, offensively was good, but defensively, knowing me, I am a defensive coach, so I wasn't really happy about that performance, but we will get better. On the other side of things, our varsity boys won in an overtime thriller, 77-72. Absolutely unbelievable game against St. Dominic. Our best player fouled out in the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter, and we went into overtime and won. And even in the fourth, we were down 4 points with less than 30 seconds left. Got 2 steals, came back and won. So really excited for the varsity program, a really good win. They'll be in action tomorrow against Bayshore in the Nassau Suffolk Challenge, which only 10 teams on Long Island get invited to. You can't just be in it. You get invited to it as being one of the top teams on Long Island. And since we had a great performance last year, we were invited this year. So we're really excited about that. But, like I said, tough loss for my JV team, but I'm excited for the rest of the season. As should be the Golden Eagles, because Tom Bryce, Stony Brook is a Division I program, and the Golden Eagles were actually winning by 4 points at one point.
Yeah, I was watching some of the game, and the guys were actually competitive.
Yeah. Ryan McNeely had, I believe, 10 of the first 30 points.
12 points.
12 of the first 30 or something like that. And
I think he had 9 and 8. I think he wound up having.
You're starting to see them start to gel. Early in the season, obviously, was rough, but you got guys playing at a high level right now. Obviously the loss of Tabata is still something that we got to monitor. But but Xavier Allen has been a nice player for them. Has been putting up some good numbers. We know what Spencer Malloy is capable of. We know what Matt Hurd could do. We know what Ron McNeely could do. There's a lot of guys on that roster that still could put up some great performances. So I'm really excited, and I'm hoping Tom Bryce to get out to my first Golden Eagles game this week as they take on Farmingdale State here locally in Nassau County. So I'm looking to hopefully get to that game. But with that being said, I also want to give a shout out to Billy because I appreciate the beard. The beard is definitely great. But unfortunately, tonight will mark the last night of my No Shave November because tomorrow I'm going to clean it up. So I'm very disappointed, but my mom will not let me stand this any longer. So she's been killing me.
Well, your mother would have probably threw me out of your house because I have this.
Well, let me tell you something. We used to call her the Gentle Force. She's not being gentle about me keeping this beard. So I got to get it.
You're probably better off because you don't want to look like me. So you want to be successful.
Well, I'm going to take care of it. And, I'm looking forward to next week. When I come on this show next week, Tom will be wearing a shirt and tie. So we'll have a game next Friday.
All right. Well, I've been sort of there in that sport, so I could certainly appreciate that. And
But so thank you guys. I'm not going to talk about the Knicks. It's a waste of time. So I want to thank everybody who's been tuning in tonight for another great week of the show. And I'm really happy to hear that we had great viewership on our Facebook page, 200 views. That's awesome. So
yeah, a lot of people. I'll tell you what, the Facebook really seems like I think it was about 200 plus views. I think the week prior was almost that, and people seem to like it. Tonight, I think it's going to be even bigger because there was a lot of people tuned in. So
I'll conclude by saying thank you to everybody, and I will say this. John Gonzalez, we're coming for you.
Ooh. You almost sound like Mike Tyson when he was speaking about Lennox Lewis in a boxing fight when they were about to fight. He said, "Lennox, I'm coming for you," and then he wound up fighting him, and Lennox Lewis beat the hell out of him. So I hope it doesn't happen for you the way that Mike Tyson said it back in 2001. So we'll figure that out here. Of course, everybody can follow the Brute Force at BWeiss20 on Instagram, BradWeiss20 on Twitter, Bradley Weiss on Snapchat, Bradley Weiss on Facebook as well. So I remember that, the Brute Force for you, sir, a plug. And, of course, Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram now as well. Make sure you follow Brad Weiss because he's also posting videos there and reels that you can check for the boys at Plainview JFK. Our very good friend Ben Gruberger, I know, is on the team. I saw Ben out there on some of the photos. So big shout out to Ben. And, of course, shout out to the Sportatorium boys. I know Jimmy Cronin and everybody in them, they're working hard. And James D. Simone, who's also with you at Plainview JFK. So guys are working hard out there. And Joey Bostrom wants to remind everybody, great show as usual, guys. Hope Chris feels better. Yes. Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing who wins between John Gonzalez and the Brute Force. But the Brute Force, you're not even in second place. Isn't that Anthony J. Finkel?
Yeah, so I'm 6 games behind John Gonzalez. Anthony Finkel is 4 games behind John Gonzalez. So Anthony Finkel
really be more about Anthony Finkel and John Gonzalez, who Anthony Finkel was in Miami, Florida tonight and didn't even – he basically was like, I'm bigger than all of us here. But that's okay. Listen, we'll see here. But let's go Jets this week. Tomorrow should be a good day. Well, today now should be a good day in college football. And also – want to remind everybody we have England playing in the World Cup. Tyson Fury is fighting for our England fans. And also the United States is playing 10 a.m. against the Netherlands. So I'm going to try to stay up and see what I can watch. We'll see how my eyes feel. But a lot of great stuff in the world of sports. SJLI is playing also at 3 p.m. against St. Elizabeth. So we have you out there. We have college football. We have hockey, wrestling. Everything is out there. We're going to cover all of it. If you are on sportnarium.com/player, in 10 minutes, you're going to go back to your regularly scheduled programming, which will include the sit-down marks right afterwards, the hockey fan chat with Randy Dillon. You're going to get the Devil's State of Mind, the baseball banter. Justin Gianelli is a part of that. If you're on Facebook, continue to like and support us. We are now well over 500 followers. That is at Sportswire Radio. So thank you, everybody, for all of that. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I will be back Sunday afternoon with pro wrestling star BMD of Colory Championship Wrestling. I'll also be back Monday night after Raw, Randy Dillon, with Craven Rage and Kodak Kid of Wrestling Championship Entertainment. Also be back later in the week with more coverage. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in here on the number one global radio station. We are Sportswire Radio. I was here today with Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat, Justin Gianelli, otherwise known as Mike White Stan of the Baseball Banter Show, Billy Mack, and I hope to see you again here soon, Billy. Billy was formerly with Elite Sports, and the brute force Brad Weiss. For the last time, we'll see him with some facial hair and a beard. He is the head coach of the Plainview JFK boys JV basketball team. He is also with Level Up Basketball, the Long Island Nets. He is also with the Long Island Brew Crew, if that's still a thing. And he is, of course, most notably an alum for the St. Joseph's, Long Island, New York Golden Eagles, who were back in action today, 3 p.m. against St. Elizabeth's. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I am the man behind Sportswire Radio. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Good night. Be well. Enjoy your sports. Stay safe out there. Stay warm. And if you're like Randy, let's not hope you go through what you went through again there. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Good night, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you